Well, hello everybody. Welcome to the show today. Glad to have you here. And wow, it's the 18th of July. It's actually a 17th for you guys, but it's a holiday for me here. Well, kind of. I got to work, of course, but it's called Marine Day or Ocean Day. Do you have one of those in your respective countries? I don't know why we have one either. Nevertheless, I'm going to go over here and I'm going to hit that like and share button, let people know what's going on, and welcome. We're going to have ourselves some conversations. Hopefully, you had yourself a great weekend. Uh, and I just sat home. Actually, I had a super quiet weekend and uh, played a couple of games. I played a game that's called what was that called? It was kind of like you're like a the new architect in some kind of weird city. My time at something rock. Anyway, it was fun. I like those kind of games. What did you guys do? As I go over here and I share everything, let me know. So there we go. But quiet weekend for me. But it doesn't seem like it was quiet for the world though, because kind of was looking at stuff yesterday, and all the news was super negative. Just so much heat going on right now. My goodness, you guys know I watch a lot of like car customization and house building and historical stuff. But my goodness, the YouTube was kind of super hot yesterday. I'm kind of wondering what happened. Did I miss some kind of news somewhere? Did some big thing happen? I don't know, but whatever. Just another day over here, says Roger. As normal can be for a weekend, Chester. Okay. Well, weekends can be pretty normal, can't they? Quiet, laid back, or, out with the family, going to the beach. It's summertime. We don't really have beaches here. I guess there are a few places in Japan. I guess there is one nearby, but Japanese are not really beach people. It's interesting. They're an island people. You'd think they would be, but they're not. They're much more mountain oriented or river oriented. It is interesting because I grew up in an ocean town myself, down in Point Judith, Rhode Island. Everything was about the ocean there. It's a little bit different here. We got Curious 2A in here as well. Hello. All right. But nevertheless, I don't know what it was. I just felt yesterday when I kind of got up and my wife and I were home and I turned on the YouTube. It was just, so much noise. Of course, I ended up shutting off and playing video games. Wife been watching the World Athletics Championship in Oregon. That's pretty interesting. Japanese first time ever had a man in the top 10 of the I think it was 7 of the 100-meter dash. That was pretty good. Of course, he's half black, but we won't say anything about that. But they were very excited about that kind of stuff. And it's interesting over here as we talk about how kind of the Asians can be a little bit, racist toward the blacks. The Japanese certainly have their moments, but the interesting thing I find with the Japanese is they don't really care much about the half breededness of athletes and people like that. It doesn't mean much here. It sounds like it used to, but it's not that big a deal, which is good for my kids. Although you wouldn't know my son was half. I mean, he looks the part. My daughter is clearly not. She's clearly a half breed. But for the boy, it's a lot easier, I think. But she doesn't get much trouble either. Nevertheless, life in a foreign land. Let's see here. Yeah, I don't know where the other people are today. Let me go over and check again. Thunder is going to be late, so if anybody can jump in, please do. Let's see. What does Elrod says? So overused words, and I don't know. He's he's trolling people again. Elrod does that a lot. he likes the troll, and he wins too. Thundero says Terminal List is so far amazing. Yeah, I enjoyed it quite a bit all the way through. It was fun. So yeah, what else we got here in the Discord? Talking about some kind of Japanese rock star. I don't know what they're talking about over here. It looks like Thundero and Korlak and others got into arguments again. Well, they're always arguing about politics in here. It's funny. Let me go back and see if I can find the beginning of the thread. How did this start? I'm sure you guys are reading it too. They're talking about race changing and something. Yeah, which is what they do, right? Too many whites. So make something different. Make something new. Stop it. Oh, Lord of the Rings. Oh, I get it. Yeah, well, that's not even Lord of the Rings, dude. It's fan fiction. And look at here. There. Aw. Aw. They got one of every color. The queen, not the king, the queen of Numenor. Even though they're with the Numenorians, of course, you're not allowed to be female. They were actually very strict in the book, more so than others. So not only is it a woman, it's a lady of the non-Numenorian race. Goodness gracious! Looks like that conversation went on for a while. They got one of every color, Thundero.
Uh-oh. What do we got one of every color of?
Well, you and Ben and Elrod and others were talking about Lord of the Rings. It looks like.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. The whole Lord of the Rings thing is, well, it's not even Lord of the Rings. Let's be honest. I mean, it's
No, it's
it's
not.
just simply not. It's not
Yeah.
one. The Lord of the Rings is a very specific story during a very specific time that this is not set in. So, plus the fact that they made all these changes, that they've decided that Harfoots are apparently not only brown but like deep Nigerian black.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
okay.
Well, I mean,
The fact that there's a black elf, which is completely anathema to the way elves are described.
it
One of the only
is.
races he goes at great length to describe their appearance of, and they still messed with it. So,
So,
yeah.
why didn't they take you? We talked about this a little bit before, but why didn't they take
Yep.
the opportunity and why didn't they call it, Lord of the Rings? Of course, you got to get that clickbait. You got to get people on board, right? But Lord of the
Uh-huh.
Rings, the East,
Yep.
or Lord of
Why
the
not?
Rings, the Southern Lands, or something like that.
Or like the Blue Wizards, or set it in one of the other places that we know exists. We know
Right?
some things happen there. We
Sure.
just don't really know any of it.
Yeah.
And then they could have told any damn story they wanted. They could have threw in any amount of non-white characters they wanted. They could have threw in a bunch of weird gender stuff if they wanted. Any of that would have been perfectly fine, because effectively all they own is basically the ability to use the name The Lord of the Rings and a
Yeah,
few of the
the
characters
appendices.
a little
Yeah,
bit here or
the
there.
appendices.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, no, I mean, and you're right with the Blue Wizards because he intentionally, well, I don't know, intentionally, he just never got to it. He died, didn't get to the Blue Wizards. And that's a
Right.
perfect opportunity. You could have done anything you wanted, and you would have had some Tolkien purists like, I will only watch something that was written and specifically properly done by Tolkien. Okay, fine. You know, but the rest of us would have watched something like that. But no, you got to go take actual characters we already know and mess with them, right? Especially the Numenorians. I understand you want to do the Numenorians, but the whole thing with Numenor is a study in hubris. Is the point, right? That's the whole point of the
Yes.
Numenorians. They were arrogant and easily twisted by Morgoth, right? And his servant, who of course becomes Sauron. Right? It's
Yes.
that's the point. They were, and the fact that only male lineage and all that kind of stuff. He was kind of pushing on that a little bit, right?
Mm-hmm.
Whereas other places, and it's interesting he pushes on that too because looking historically, we're the ones that push those kind of things, right? Because in with our people, or at least I know most of your blood, We've had female leaders for thousands of years, right?
Yeah.
But speaking of that, if I can
Uh-oh.
shift to another bit of stupidity, if you don't mind, I saw
Uh-oh.
a trailer yesterday,
For
The Woman King
the Woman King?
from Viola Davis.
Oh boy, I bet was it everything you hoped it could be and a little bit more?
Well, it made me laugh because it's talking about, well, of course they weren't called that at that time, but they're talking about the Benin, the African country,
Yeah,
and they made a story, and of course you see they're fighting against the evil
of
Whites,
course.
right?
That's right. Yeah.
But they made a little bit of a mistake, Thundero. It's just a little bit one that of
Uh-oh.
course I'm not even an African specialist, and I caught it instantly. A little bit of problem. You see that country there, and the king, a specific king that they're having at the time, who is actually being played by Boyega, right?
Oh boy.
Our boy Finn. Um, uh, they're actually the ones who were predominantly involved in starting the African slave trade. They're
Yeah.
the ones who sold almost all the blacks that they captured, they're the surrounding tribes, to the Arabs, and then the Arabs are the ones who are trying to find new markets and customers and selling them to the Europeans and pushing them
Uh-huh.
over in the colonies eventually, right? The colonists, a lot of colonists weren't very happy about that. Keep that in mind. But nevertheless, and of course, when it came to an end, you see what happened was these British, these whites, they were like, hey, we've been, buying slaves from you for a couple hundred years here, and we don't think it's good. We're going to stop it. And they were
Yeah.
like, well, this is where all our money comes from. This is the soul of our country, the financial backing of our country, quote unquote, by the way. And they're like, what are we going to do? So the British are like, well, we're going to start eating some farming and get you doing those kind of produce. So they did. They did, because the British Empire was wicked powerful at that time. You can't say no. But of course, they kept using slaves for the farming, of course. But my point being, in the reality of the story, it was actually the whites that were coming in and stopping the slavery. You see,
That's right. Yeah.
and but they've decided in the movie that's not what happened.
No.
It's the ladies that stood up, and of course they
Oh
did have,
God, of course it is.
now they did have their lady warriors in Benin, but they were you can see a modern take on it. Muammar Gaddafi, who had
Yeah.
his royal guard, they're all ladies. They're like warrior harem, right?
Right.
Yeah.
That's so dumb. It's so dumb. Like
Literally the
there's
opposite of the truth. Literally the
yes.
opposite. And of
Well,
course,
because
most people are dumb and haven't studied any. And like I say, I'm not a Black African specialist at all,
yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Or West
Me
African in this
neither.
case.
But
Uh,
but I know for a fact that up until sometime in the late 1700s, in the mid 1800s, somewhere in that ballpark, Europeans largely, very very few of them made it into what they called the heart of Africa
oh
because
yeah,
they would die
it's
when they
deadly. Yeah,
tried.
yeah, it's deadly. It's quite an accomplishment, actually.
So
Some people
yeah,
have
so
statues simply for doing that.
just for going there.
Yeah,
It's
and
ridiculous
coming back.
historically
Yeah,
to say that it was ran and facilitated by Europeans because it literally was impossible for it to be. There was no way they could have done it because they couldn't survive. We literally Euros could not survive there.
yeah, we had a lot of trouble. But now,
Yeah.
to be fair, it's not like there weren't problems. The Portuguese were absolutely abominable in
Yes.
Africa. You also have many other European countries that were doing some pretty nasty stuff there. Most of the big European countries actually were doing their nasty stuff in Asia. To be fair, but of
That's
course
true.
there were bad things coming from all kind of people. But I'm specifically talking about this movie and the time frame they chose, and freaking dumbass Boyega. I mean, come on, dude. You get up talking about racism all the time. You're like freaking Kaepernick. Kaepernick. You wear it like a goddamn badge, right? And you didn't. But they offer you this role. Viola and her husband and produces, I guess. They offer you this role, and you don't bother just to even pick up the most benign or an innocuous Wikipedia read on it.
Hmm.
I mean, come on,
Yeah.
dude. That's embarrassing. Because the character you're playing was actually the king of slavery, is who he was. He was in charge of slavery coming out of Africa. And
I
the it's insane, dude.
I love how in the left's revisionist history, um, Africans have absolutely no agency at any point in their history of their existence.
Oh
None.
yeah, they don't.
They
Yeah,
they could have they had they just couldn't have. I mean, either they did and they were just completely and utterly worthless, so that these outsiders were able to do this to them, which isn't what happened because they weren't, or they didn't because they had no ability to stop it because the outsiders were just too much better than them, so they were just completely victimized by it. But the truth is no, there were bad ones and good ones, and the bad ones,
sure.
unfortunately, for a very long time, won in that continent,
I
and
think
they kept selling each other off
think
in slavery.
think the bad guys always win. Let's be fair.
They do often in the real world, don't they?
Yeah, they do.
Um, but no, it's preposterous to say that white people who outside of Europe were the last to engage in mass slavery, meaning we enslaved other Europeans, but typically that's where we stayed, and into
Well,
these
just
mass
call it
trades
black
like the
slavery.
Arabs did.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, and we're the first ones to be like, you know what? This is kind of this is wrong. We shouldn't do this.
Yeah.
This
Well,
is wrong.
and they did, and the British particularly. I know Americans like to
Yeah,
take credit, but it's really the British that ended slavery
the
as we knew
British
it.
did it. That's right.
Um,
British
uh,
Christians, by the
British
way,
Christians,
that
yeah,
did it.
yeah. Protestant types or Episcopalians or whatever they call them, Church of England. But
Yeah,
whatever that
Anglicans.
is, Anglicans. There it is. Yeah. But no, I know, and of course, slavery's been around a long time, and if you go and study the history of slavery, you'll see there's all kinds of different takes on how it was done and stuff. But some of the most brutal slavery we've seen in human history is Arabic slavery. I
Yeah,
mean,
still is.
still, because a lot of places in the world certainly had slavery. Although, I think I'd probably use the word indentured servitude.
That's
Although to
more
be fair,
accurate. Yeah,
all to be fair, the indentured servants in America were treated worse than the slaves. But
they were. Yeah.
however, um, the the Arabs, though, they treated humans like cattle, right?
Yes.
And a lot of cultures around the world, it wasn't that bad. A lot of times, slavery was something you did to pay off a debt or to earn something. You would actually sell yourself into the indentured servitude, right?
Yes.
Slaves were often made part of families or made part of eventually became part of the village or what have you. I'm not giving promoting slavery here. But just saying humans have done it in so many different ways over history. But
Yeah.
the Arabs are way brutal. Do you know there is a reason why there's no blacks in the Middle East?
Oh yeah, because they used to make them eunuchs.
They
They s-
castrate them
chop their
constantly.
chop their junk off so they wouldn't rape their wives was their reasoning. But the reality is just because they hate them.
Yeah,
As
well,
simple as
that
that.
is true.
They just hated them.
What they would do is they take these two poles and they would tie their arms and legs stretched out, and they would just have, I mean, hundreds of meters of these fields of these people tied up in the thousands, right? And they would just
Yeah.
go, and they were pretty good at it though. They could do that quickly and successfully with a very low mortality rate, which is, I know it's not a thing to say anything positive about, but it's actually pretty impressive that they could do that so
Yeah.
quickly and so safely, actually. But yeah, no, it. I, I just how can you be so unaware because, like I said, I'm not an expert in that at all, right? I'm not
Yeah.
an expert in Black history. I'm really, really not. I'm a
Well,
Mesopotamian guy, right? But
yes.
I, in your trailer, I instantly saw it. Just me.
Yeah.
There's no way you're not going to get a huge kickback on that dude.
Well, that's the problem, right? Is that's why all this stuff is wrong. That's why I'm against politicized race swapping of characters, even in fiction, and that even do it in historical pieces too. That's why I'm against making these sort of alterations, is because it gives people the permission to make ones that are bigger. Because then you can hit, and we've all done it. Every time you have an argument with somebody about it, they'll bring up a what about. Well, what about this over here? Did you care about that? Yeah, well, yes, actually, I did. But regardless of that, that's irrelevant to the fact that we're talking about over here. When you give people a cognitive dissonance out, meaning something that they know in other circumstances they would be against, right? So race swapping in media. A lot of people would be against
Sure.
taking an African story and mixing a bunch of Chinese people up in there just cuz, right? A lot of people would be against that because it's just not authentic.
Sure.
Right?
I want to see Shaka Chan though.
Shaka Chan. But my point is most people, I think, would be rightfully so, especially black people and African people, would be against that because it's, insulting. That's why I'm against it broad scale. And that's what people, this is the reason why, is because it gives people the permission to be intentionally wrong or unintentionally wrong, but to just be wrong with zero recourse for correction. Now you could say, well, it's not that big of a deal. It's just a movie. People will forget about it. It's not, though. I just saw a story the other day where, the founders of America, a lot of them, the ones that survived anyway, had decent-sized estates, right? Like Monticello and things like this.
Yes.
Well, some billionaire has been paying for the renovations of these and taking out any references to God from them. Because he's an atheist, I'm assuming, so it offends him that the founders, were deists, and some of them devout Christians.
Let's be fair, they were deists. Yeah,
that's what I said. They were deists. Yeah. A few of them were devout Christians. George Washington was fairly devout, but the rest of them were, or at least his propaganda said he was, the rest of them were deists at best. Jefferson was probably the closest to an actual atheist, but he didn't really say it, because you couldn't say those sorts of things back then.
Probably.
But regardless of all that, they at least made reference to God on a regular basis. Whether you agree with that or not, they did. They even put it in the damn in many of the founding documents, and all of their discourses had reference to it. Even Jefferson, who didn't really believe in a spiritual God, he believed in the how did he call it? Nature's God, just whatever the force is that controls nature, basically.
Call him a Buddhist. Of that era,
probably
is what I call him. Actually, the
but
most
regardless,
devout Christian was Adams.
Yes, regardless, this is happening right now, today. That's happening because we give people permission to do these things and things that, quote, don't matter. I'd argue they do matter. Culture does matter, and when you make it dispensable like this, that's terrible. That's horrible. Think about this, Chester. I told you, I know people who are in their 20s who have never heard a single one of American folklore stories like Paul Bunyan or John Henry. They have no idea what you're talking about. They're like, what? What are you talking about?
Those are good
No
stories.
idea. Yes, that's American folklore, and that's American culture. Uniquely.
It is. Yeah.
It's been erased. Well, that matters.
Silly. Well, especially with
it's
John
a silly
Henry.
little story.
Paul Bunyan is not real, but John Henry was based on a real man.
Correct.
An actual dude.
Right.
That's
so was Appleseed. He was a real person.
Yeah.
He went around and planted apple trees.
And that also kind of got picked up on the. We don't need to get into it. Yeah. Okay.
But my point is he was a real person that got romanticized heavily.
Yes.
Same with John Henry. But these stories matter. And people make these excuses that it's not that big a deal and da-da-da. And in the grand scheme, in my personal life, it's not that big a deal.
No.
But in 1,000 years, The only things we're going to have left behind of us is our culture and our technology if we're lucky. That is what will matter when we're gone.
Yeah.
The memories of who we are play out in our cultural icons. And when we allow those cultural icons to be abused or disused in this manner, that's not healthy. That's not a healthy culture doesn't do that. And in fact, no other culture of any repute in the world would permit it. None. The Japanese would not be okay with it if it was a genuine, like if you were doing some crazy shit with their history. They might not be like vehemently against it, but they're not going to be happy with it. We've seen how
Well,
unhappy they get with certain things. The
they
Chinese especially aren't going to be happy with it.
Oh, I
Uh,
know, but because they recreate their history. Damn it, don't you touch it. Yeah, the
yeah, that's their
Japanese
job.
were fairly put off by the last samurai, which wasn't
Yes.
completely inaccurate.
And
But
it wasn't even offensive, really. I mean, I
no.
think it was fair. But
But
yeah, they
see,
didn't
here's
like
the
it.
thing, though. If
Hmm.
Viola Davis, who's not a bad actress, I'm not going to take that away from her. And she's definitely got some push in Hollywood, clearly. Now imagine if she went and told this story accurately, or at least as accurate as Hollywood can get, about a monstrous, tyrannical African king that was an
Yeah,
African story. Imagine that. That would have been shit. I would have
awesome.
applauded, dude.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. And
Right?
because one of the big problems we hear all the time, at least I do when I go on like Black Twitter or social media or whatever, you don't hear it as much, but you used to hear it a lot, is Black Americans specifically. They claim their culture's been stolen from them, their history's been hidden. Okay, well, let's tell it then.
Yeah.
Well, you see, sometimes history's ugly and dirty and nasty and violent, and brutal.
Yeah.
Well, that means you got to tell it, though. If you want your history, you have to tell all of it. You can't be afraid of the parts that are ugly. In fact, you should cherish those parts as much as you do the beautiful ones because those ugly ones probably helped shape who you are as a person a lot more than the pretty ones did. Because that's how humans learn. We learn through
Oh yeah.
negativity more than we do
We
positivity.
do remember those, and there's plenty of good stories they could
Yeah.
tell. There's a lot of stuff that gets swapped out, like what is it? Scheherazade is black now, and the Queen of Sheba is black now. Oh goodness.
Yeah. Yeah. Even though
Um,
she was, light brown, but
well,
that's
actually,
fine.
she was probably white, actually, because the ruling families of those dynasties were all coming from up in the European area,
Hmm.
specifically. But whatever. I watched that American Gods thing,
Yeah.
and boy, goodness gracious. But I guess it's just something you have to shut your head off if you actually kind of know the folklore, which I do. But
Hmm.
it was fun overall, though, I guess. And that since we're talking about mythological beings, I guess you can get away with it a little bit. Look what they did to Thor. But
Yeah.
I just I mean, this one particularly, because it's literally the opposite of the truth, right? A lot of times they'll bend it, right? But this is
Yeah.
literally the opposite. At that time,
Like
they're
Black
just
Achilles.
well, yeah, but that's just pandering, dude. But at that time where they're going to get the whites were actually the ones that were the good guys at that moment of your story. They were the ones
Right.
coming in and forcing you to stop slavery, right? I mean, at
Well,
that
that's what they
moment.
hate. They hate the fact that, historically speaking, yeah, white people done some really messed up stuff, no question. But also, worldwide, they've also been the most courageous and heroic when it came to facing the evils of the world. That's just a fact. You don't
Oh
have to
no,
like it, but it's the
yeah,
truth.
people don't like that, especially the modern whatever they call themselves. The
Yeah,
Darwinists. There is no modern world without Protestant Revolution and the Christians, dude. There is no
that's
modern.
correct.
It doesn't exist. Yeah, without question.
Yeah.
But anyway, I just thought I'd mention it because I was like, damn, I haven't seen much talk on it. I imagine there will be. It said it's coming in September. There's going to be
Yep.
some pushback on that for sure. I didn't really see anybody talking about it. Like I said, I just saw a trailer and I was like, "What's this?" And I checked it out. But I'm sure you're going to see more pushback on that. Like a bunch of
Oh
other
boy,
nonsense.
I love the what's the word I'm looking for? Is it histrionic? I think that's the word. these things that they put out that are set in these timepieces that are just completely ridiculous. And not a ridiculous in like, hey, this is supposed to be fun. We're just kind of having fun with it kind of way. In a just abjectly retarded. Like, it's so wrong that the only way for it to be that wrong was intentionally. You had to have done this intentionally because you know who these people are. You know their names, which means you've done some research on them.
Right.
You've at least looked.
Yeah.
So that means you looked and was like, I don't like that story. I'm going to make up my own.
Right.
And that's what they did.
Elrod noticed it too. Yeah. Yeah. Exactly right, Elrod. Yeah. It's funny because it's literally the opposite. Yeah. But whatever. Roger says, I often think about if these African Americans that are here in the States, what if this generation, and I mean all of them, what if they all went back to Africa and their native tribes? Well, that has happened before. After the Civil War,
Yes.
there was a huge push. We talked a little bit about him. He was part of that team. They went back to Africa, and lots of blacks did go back to Africa, and they created the country, the nation of Liberia. Now, we're not going to talk about the state of Liberia today, but nevertheless, I don't know. No, there are, and to be fair, there are blacks who say that they should go back to Africa. You have other people who are
Yep.
less friendly say it as well. I personally, you have two problems with that, Roger. One, do you think they would actually survive in that environment? One.
No.
And two, they're not African. I
Not
know they
anymore.
like to get on this kick from time to time, but they're not. Uh, you know, uh, uh, I don't know what the percentage is, but it's probably upwards of 70 to 80% of them are 60% European. Just
Yep.
understand
Or
that.
close to 60.
Yeah,
Somewhere in
and
that ballpark. Yep.
look what it's created. When you think of black people as an American, you think of big, tall, strong guys,
Thick.
thick.
Thick men.
Well,
Yeah.
that's because they're mostly white. Taking that white
That's right.
and mixing it with the black. Now the black is very strong. It's all those because white people have a lot of recessive stuff in us, particularly our whiteness and our eyes and our hair colors. It's a recessive, right? Therefore, those
Yep.
black genes are strong, dude. So they look black. They look dark. But they're not, and to be honest, and good on for them, dude, because what it created is this big, very powerful build, right? I mean, there's
hmm
some really powerful black dudes in America. And if you go to Africa, this thing people don't understand. People have this image of Africans as being these big, tall bucks like they see in America. The
No, they're
smallest
small.
people on earth are black,
Yep.
like the top 10, right?
Well, Africa's a crazy place though too, because it also has a bunch of really tall people as well.
In the
I think the
center.
tallest group, yeah, in the center is really tall. But regardless, your point is that they're not really African anymore.
Mm-mm.
I know they call themselves that, but the truth of it is they're as American as I am, right?
Yeah.
I'm an American mutt,
Yep.
and so are they. And there's nothing
They're
wrong with
American.
that. That's
Yeah.
fine. That's
We're
how
all
humanity is. I think the other problem they would have is a lot of the Africans simply don't want them there.
And
They
they
don't like them.
They don't like them. They whine. They consider them to be whiny and soft, and of course they are
Yep.
comparatively. But so I'm just saying it's been done before, Roger. But I just don't know that it would be a good thing for them, and it would be dumb, really, because they're
Yeah.
American. Like Thunder just
That's
said,
right.
they're American. Be American, and that's really what needs to happen. Because
Well, and a lot of them come from, there's some evidence that they didn't really come from Africa at all. That there was already some here
oh yeah,
that had intermixed with the natives over here,
don't
and then obviously as the
don't
the settlers and stuff came over.
that would
But
be
that's the stuff they don't talk about in history
TFT.
class, right? It's
We're
just
talking about Tartaria.
damn it.
You're
You're not allowed.
Shh, don't talk.
I don't know why you're not allowed, but you're not allowed to know
You're
these
not
things in
allowed,
history
yeah,
class.
I know,
They don't
dude.
tell you it.
I don't know. That is weird. Something really weird did go on a few hundred years ago, dude.
Yeah.
For sure. And it's a mix of things. I'm sure there, because the Tartarian group like to spread the conspiracy theories and stuff, and it's fun. I enjoy it myself. But the
Sure.
reality is, it's a little more complicated than that. Um,
Always is.
yeah, so there's definitely a little bit of truth. I think the architecture we find in the West, particularly,
Yep.
there's no way, it's impossible that it
Yep.
was built by the couple of hundred people that were there to build it. Australia is another good example. So a culture that had got itself around the world and built in a certain style, I think, is very valid. And I'm kind of curious as to why the Europeans rubbed it out. And I think the last stand of it was in the Boxer Revolution in China, I believe, as far
Interesting.
as that goes. But what I think happened is this. This is my theory. You want to hear it?
Hmm. Let's hear it.
Okay. I think that when you had we had Rome, and the Germans
Hmm.
took over. The Germans were far more religious, actually faithful, than the Romans
Vout.
themselves, right? And that's why we call it the fall of Rome, but really it's a changing from the Roman Empire to the Holy Roman Empire, right? Where the
That's right.
Catholic Church was, made prominently in charge. And this has been going on for a while, of course. But what it caused, which it had been caused for a long time, was a schism
Hmm.
between the Western Church and the Eastern Church, and it that schism was finalized at that moment, right? And they
Right.
went on to this very day separate. And I think what happened was, whereas the Western Church under the control of the Germans, and then of course the French ended up taking over, right? Um, Pretty quickly, actually, after the French Revolution, not the French, well, not the one you're thinking of, but the one that actually got them their name, right? Because
Yes.
France is the name of an axe, the Francis. But anyway, the Eastern Orthodox Church went on and was imperial, right? Truly imperial. Whereas the
Hmm.
Western one was less so. I know we think it is, but not really. It was certainly an imperial on the Europeans' asses, but it was the
Yeah.
Europeans that were doing it to themselves. But the Eastern Church was very imperial. And I think they grew and grew and grew, and they became what we call the Muslims.
Interesting.
I really do. And they spread. They spread. Of course, we know 800 years ago we have the whole Genghis Khan thing, or excuse me, Genghis Khan. And
Hmm.
Genghis was an Anatolian. He was a Turk, a red-headed, blue-eyed Turk, right? He
Yep.
wasn't a Mongolian. Person. There were a lot of Mongolians in his army, and he had people from all over, and they went and they conquered a lot. And I think that was more about taking territory and consolidating power, the reality of it. And in that period, from let's say 1300 until about 1800, so we're talking about 500-year period. We don't get much. There's not much hit. The Europeans haven't laid down much history. The Chinese were on their frickin' knees because of what happened to them, and they had no power at that time because all the power was in Anatolia. And the Indians got taken over as well. Remember, and
Right.
the victors write the histories. So what do we have? What do we have for history to be told? Well, all we have is the Europeans because everything else was on its knees at that time. And I think my guess is that during that time, the imperial Eastern Orthodox slash Islamic Church, and I could get into a very long presentation of why I think the Orthodoxy became the Islamist. But I think they just carried on, dude, and they carried on from their eastern provinces over here in Asia, and they crossed the Pacific, and they did all kinds of stuff. I think they were in the Americas. I think they were in the Oceanus. I think they were all over, right? And when we
Interesting.
come into a lot of those buildings that are very questionable as to be built with the same building style, which we also find all throughout Eastern Europe and Australia, I think that was built by them. And there was some big a lot of wars and troubles going on with the destruction of the Tartars. The Russians particularly hated the Tartars and wanted
They
them
weren't
wiped out.
fans. Hmm.
And then
and effectively succeeded
they did.
at wiping them out.
And then when you had the Protestant Revolution, we know with Martin Luther, we know that a lot of things were rewritten. You talk about book burnings. Boy, did they have
Oh
some
yeah,
book burnings then. And a lot of stuff was literally rewritten. So it's hard for us to know what any truth is because we're literally looking at books that are saying the information is coming from 1,000, 2,000 years ago, yet it was written 400, 350, 300
right.
years ago, right?
Well, that was,
Yeah.
in my opinion, that might have been the greatest crime in the history of mankind, was the burning of the Great Library specifically,
Oh, yeah. Well, then you
because
talk about
that was it.
Alexandria, which happened earlier,
Yeah.
but that was another bad
Yep.
one, yeah.
I think when you
Tartar
do
sauce is
those
very
sorts
divisive,
of
though, Ron.
things,
Huh?
I think when you do those sorts of things, when you wipe away entire, eons of history like that, which has happened in more than one place on more than one occasion. The Muslims
Sure,
did it a lot too.
of course.
The Christians did it a lot. The Romans did it a lot. Um,
Chinese, yeah.
yeah, I think that's just an unforgivable sin. Honestly, I don't think there's any way to recompense that. How do you? You can't. There's no way to make that right. It's gone
Well,
forever.
it's the
There's no
same
bringing
thing
it back.
same thing you see them trying to do today, with
Yes,
literally making a movie about the king, or of course this time was the end of it, but for centuries that country, the black king, black people, they were the center of black slavery.
that's
And
right.
it's just rewriting history, just like we've seen many other people do. So, and I also think you have a lot of stuff in the Americas, because they get into orphan trains and things like that. But a lot of that has to do with them trying to, because in the beginning, a lot, early America, especially when you're getting just after the Civil War, a lot of black people had money, wealth, and power. The Cherokee, for instance, had a lot of authority and power, and a lot of it was saying that trying to come up with a reason to get rid of them, right? So they would that's where all those insane asylums came from. Right, and they were basically just using it to as political prisoners. And you got all these kids. What do you do with these kids? We'll send them out west. We'll re-educate them, and we'll use them to build the West. And that's what happened.
Right.
I think you have some maybe coming from Europe. There might have been some deals that we don't know about, but mainly that's what you're looking at. Pacifying a population that they don't, powers that be don't approve of, and just sending the kids west, right?
Yep.
So, because the thing is, people talk about
Tale as old as time.
well, it is. And people talk about the Cherokee are so white today. Well, I kind of think they always were.
Oh, uh-oh. That's the deep take. It's very possible. All the my family's white as shit. We have some features, like you've seen a picture of me. We have some features that are very much Indian-esque, Cherokee-esque, but by and large, you wouldn't be able to tell us apart too much from other white people, other whole white people.
Yeah.
Um, and I think there's a lot more to that than people probably know.
Yeah. Yeah.
Especially considering that the Cherokee, a lot of them were in the southeast before the Trail of Tears, especially scattered them out further west, and there's still a lot in the southeast. There's that. I think
There
that's where
are.
the Cherokee Nation's headquarters is, somewhere southeast. I can't remember exactly, but regardless, a lot of those people, which we have evidence now that the old Vikings who definitely were here, it's
Oh, yeah.
irrefutable now, probably made it all the way down to Florida. Very easily could have, because most likely what happened is they just bred with the natives and their culture just kind of faded away over time.
Sure.
Because we just simply don't know what happened to them. They just disappeared, the ones that were here. And I wouldn't be surprised if that's one of the things that happened. Some of the more eastern tribes became mutts like me,
They did.
and just mixed in with the whole whites, and that was just it. That's just what happened.
Yeah. Because you go back a couple hundred years ago to the earliest photography we have, and of course we have it from all over the world, and including the
Yep.
Americas. Go find me a picture of a Cherokee that looks like an Indian.
Right. That looks like you're straight up like Navajo or something. Like
Or something
right
in the
on the
in the
yeah.
West, right? Something in the
Right.
West. So yeah, no, the Cherokee deserves a little bit more of in-depth research, which you won't get it. You won't get it.
No,
There's
no,
too
no,
much
no.
money
Well,
made, be able to made on racism.
exactly.
So
Exactly, and that one, there's too much of that. The Cherokee Nation doesn't want it, even though if you look at the elders of them, most of them look like just straight up Europeans.
yeah, they do.
Uh,
Yeah,
it's it's a shame that we've racialized. This is coming from me, that we've racialized so much of our history instead of making it a shared history. And there's reasons that's happened, both good and bad. Because like the reason why I don't like the idea of a Black History Month or whatever, because there isn't a Black history. There's history. That's it. It's
yeah.
all our history. It's every human being's history. If we are capable as a species of commingling sexually, then we are the same functionally.
You know what
There's
would be
very little difference genetically between
yeah.
us.
You know what would be cool if we actually had a history month and
Oh,
channels that are supposed to be about history, like the History Channel, they
yeah,
spent the 31 days of that because I take a long month. Take the 31 days of that month, and each day is
yep.
about a different culture from around the world every year. Boy, that would
I
be
love it.
cool.
I love everything about
That
it.
would be neat. Yeah. But anyway, I really feel like I should have run the TFT trailer. But
Well, it's crazy because I mean, it's. I don't understand how people can live in denial that this is happening. One, of course, it's happening. Of course, people are trying to rewrite history. Have you ever read history?
yeah, it's
That's
constant,
what history is. It's
constant.
a bunch of people trying to rewrite history. That's what it is. Um, so of course they're still doing it. Why wouldn't they still be doing it? Like I said, there's that very wealthy guy who is paying for these renovations, as he calls them, of these famous historical American sites,
Jackass.
and they've been making alterations, right? They've been, as the people are calling it, woking it up. Um, that is abominable.
Yeah.
Abominable. That is a crime against the ancestors of the American people. That is a crime against the current living American people to fuck with our history like that.
Hmm.
And to me, it's an unforgivable sin. And where that attitude manifests itself most commonly is in Hollywood or in something similar to Hollywood, in fictional media. And that's why I don't like it. I just don't like the whole concept of it. I think is wrong.
Yeah, no. It's interesting you mentioned the word history, and I think a lot of
Yeah.
people misunderstand. I see a lot of people will break it down and say his story, especially feminists, which is funny, because most people relate the word history to the historia in the old
Yeah.
French, which simply means story or chronicle, right? That's all it
Right.
means. But actually, I would argue that it comes from a much older German, and
Mm,
that German means to inquire.
I like that.
Yeah.
I like that.
And I really, really think that's where it's coming from. Um, but it's tough. Etymology is difficult. I haven't looked at it, but I imagine if you go look at the Oxford Dictionary, see you would see probably some talk on that. I would imagine, but people don't use those little books anymore.
Well,
Um,
right, especially if you use the old ones and the prints, the old
yes.
prints of it, because the new ones online. Oh boy, the things that these dictionaries online do is just repugnant to me as a person who actually does care about history. They will literally, in real time, change the
Oh,
definitions
they
of
do all
words
the
to fit
time.
political narratives.
They do.
Yeah, I don't
Yeah.
like that one bit. Not one bit.
I understand the Americans and of us, and me included, like Chester. It's only Webster. Chester. Chester. But and Webster's a fine dictionary. But let's be realistic. Those crazy bastards that created the Oxford Dictionary over decades,
Yep.
they were meticulous to the nth degree. Matter of fact, if you look up the word meticulous, it should have a picture of those dudes.
Hmm.
The global effort and involving the public and everything in the creation of the Oxford Dictionary is it's just one of the most impressive feats in human history. And I know that people you're telling me, fuck off, Chester. No, no. It's impressive what the Oxford people did. And as far as I'm concerned, there is no English dictionary other than the Oxford Dictionary series. And since then, they've kept it updated as well. But it's just decades and decades of work and really hardcore, you know, a pedantic level of we will not put it in until we know exactly where it came from and exactly
Right.
how it came to be. It's very impressive. That's why I referenced the Oxford. I just have a feeling in my gut that the Americans are bitching at me from behind the screen. It's Webster Chester. Sorry.
I think a lot of Americans have. We have a problem with affluenza in America, and there's just too many people who simply don't care. They have this malaise about them that they just don't care about anything that doesn't directly impact or affect them. And that is that level of apathy is literally how civilizations end.
Oh no, it
That's how
is.
it
It
happens.
is. It is. But because you got to keep in mind, what English is, and it's an amalgam of literally thousands upon thousands of years of history coming into the creation of a language, an intended created one. And we don't have a lot of that, right? We have
Hmm.
examples of language having alphabets forced upon them. We have examples of, smarty ass priests thinking they're going to get all fancy and funny and creating stupid languages like, Cyrillic. Sorry, Russia. But that's dumbass. Go study the history of how that their language came to be. Jesus. But to have a language that was actually created whole cloth, out of the existing languages, um, it's unique. We do have Esperanza, they call it, I think, and Ubanics and a few other things, but those are lame ass attempts at language. Lame,
Yeah.
right? Comparatively. So when the professors over there and their teams took on the creation of Oxford Dictionary, when in reality what they really were doing was telling us the history of language itself, right? Because keep in
Right.
mind, you have how do you let me ask you a question. How do you say what is the word for the liquid byproduct of female cows?
Milk.
Yeah, that. Thank you. And
Yeah.
if you take the K off, because that is just possessive, right?
Hmm.
If you just so what do you have left? You have meal or mu,
Yeah.
right? And the interesting thing over here in Japan, it is yu. In China,
Interesting.
it is new. All over the world, what you'll find is that root of mu is everywhere.
It's
It's everywhere.
everywhere.
Now, milk is not a cultural thing. It's not something that was brought into the rest of the world, like the word computer, mhm,
Mm.
or something like that. It's women have it. So you would
Right.
imagine each language in the world would have their own word, separate word for something as universal as milk, right? But they don't. Every language on the planet has the same root for milk. You also can find this with mother and many other kind of very universal words. And this brings us to a very important question of how did that happen, right? It's a
Right.
mystery because how in the world do we have some tribe that we'll run into in the Amazon that hasn't seen humans in centuries, but yet they have the same roots, or what have you? And the deepest countryside areas of China will have the same roots. There's clearly a connection, and what those Oxford professors did was in their pedantic attempt to take the etymology of language back as far as it could. What they did was create a database of human language and its history. And therefore, boy, I don't know if you can get more important than that from my point of view. You know. Anyway.
Sorry, I was trying to see what my mic kept picking up a bunch of background noise, but I think I figured it out. I switched mics.
Oh, that's good.
But no, they that is weird. I was looking up recently because I'm writing my things still, and I was looking up things like Sumerian names and Sumerian words, like the word for father, and one of them apparently is like Abba or Ada.
Adad.
Uh,
Adad.
yeah,
Adad.
which is like what? How is it basically the same word as dad?
Because it's
It's
where it comes from.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
crazy to me. That blew my mind. I was like, huh. Even the damn Sumerians were using the same
Well,
sounds.
and his wife's name was Momama. Yeah. No, that's where they come from. Mom and dad, once again, are very universal, and it's coming out of the gods, Adad and Momama, his
Yep.
wife. Yeah, no, I mean, that now, a lot of historians, therefore, will just throw it down. Oh, Mesopotamia was the beginning of the world. I don't think so. I think it was a restart center.
Yep.
And is it just that simple that that's why things are unified, or is it deeper and older than that? I don't know. But I just, I'm trying to push why I think the creation of the Oxford Dictionary is one of the incredibly momentous it's incredibly momentous, because and that people don't appreciate it, right?
Well, it's also back to the broader point of what even got us on this topic, why I'm against these sorts of changes. Like you talking about that show, even in just fictional media, it has an impact
Sure.
because it's these sorts of things are transcendent. We are all going to perish one day, but our language, hopefully, is not. At least not in the short term.
Hmm.
Uh, English isn't going anywhere. The cultures that are based in English most likely aren't going anywhere. So fiddling with them, to me, should only be done when it's absolutely necessary. So we've had, like we were talking about the end of slavery. Slavery was a big deal pretty much in every culture ever. They had slavery of some form.
Hmm.
Well, eventually people, as we were saying, Anglicans mostly, got very fed up with it and realized that it's just repugnant morally to do so and decided that the culture needed to change. They were correct. The culture did need to change. And it did very quickly, actually, historically. There are times when culture and tradition should be scrapped and left behind, especially when they're no longer fit for purpose anymore. But that should only be done when it's very obvious that that is the case. When there's so many arguments to do so, logical, consistent arguments, moral arguments to do so, that to argue against it becomes silly. That's the only time you should be doing those sorts of things. And there is never, in my opinion, an appropriate time to change or try to change history. Now, if you come up with new information that disproves a certain perspective on history, fine. Present that information and let nature take its course.
Sure.
But that's not what they're doing here. They're strong arming, changing things to fit their narrative, and that's just wrong.
It is, and
It's
and
just
it
plain
would have
wrong.
been it would have been very interesting if they went the right way with it. But
Yep.
I just before I move on to today's stories, I would like to note that one of the main countries pushing against not ending slavery by the British were the French. Just so
That's
you
right.
know,
Yeah, that's right.
because it's always the fucking French.
It's always the
Um,
French. They're the
my wife
worst.
is
They
looking
are
at
the
me now.
worst.
Baby doll, can I have some libations?
Oh, oh my.
Uh, Coffee, please. Maybe some ice water. Thank you, baby doll. She's
Did
got
she
her
say,
cute little
"Fine, you
shirt
prick"?
on. She's putting her little makeup on. She's going to go do something. I don't know what
Uh-oh.
she probably got to go to her mother's house. What are you doing? Oh, her mother has peaches for me. So makeup must go on to go to
Ooh.
the mother's house to get the peaches.
That's right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right. Yeah, write that down.
Yeah. I dragged my poor wife out in basically pajamas today because we just wanted to go get snacks, and I didn't feel like waiting for her to get dressed because of the same thing. She literally was visibly, physically angry at me because I wouldn't let her put on proper clothing. I was like, "Come on, no, let's just go."
Yeah.
Yeah, I understand. I
Yeah.
understand.
Kawaii. I said she's cute, and she said I'm creepy. Thanks, baby. That was sorry. I had to translate. But women are funny in that way, though. Yeah, because
I
me,
like
you know,
how
pull a brush through the hair and good to go, right?
yeah, I just throw on a tank top and some shorts. I was good. I like how creepiness in the females is universal. Doesn't matter where you're at. Women
Right.
don't like creeps.
No. Yeah. Go. I called her cute, right? It's so
Uh-huh.
cute. But anyway, I'm getting peaches, which is good.
Yay! Peaches are good. Peaches are great, in fact.
Yes.
It's one of my
I won't
favorite
say this
fruits.
too loudly, but especially when it's from the parents because they got money.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh my.
Yeah. So they're going to be the high quality ones that I wouldn't spend money on.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
That's good.
and now
That's
she's
good.
giving me the puffy cheeks. All right. Although you remember how I don't know if you were maybe I mentioned on Join a Quarter, but how my dog I thought he was having like an aneurysm or something or a stroke because he was like falling to the right and just couldn't keep his balance and eventually where he's walking around fine, but we had to go get his here in Japan. What is it? Every year you have to get a shot? Yeah, every year dogs have to get certain shots, for I guess rabies and other things like that. Pets.
Mhm.
The Japanese are very strict about foreign animals, and of course over here you can't. You know, my dog has papers.
Oh boy.
He has
Japan.
parentage and genealogy, right? He's fancy, but then again, you're also paying thousands of dollars for a dog,
Yeah.
thousands, right? But nevertheless, the doctor did the shots and examined him and said, well, he is 14 going on 15, and I doubt he'll make the year. So
Aw, poor pup.
my wife is sad.
That's
And
what happens,
you're so worried
unfortunately.
about your makeup, baby doll, that you forgot the tag sticking out the back there. Yeah,
Uh-oh. You're in trouble now. Uh-oh.
yeah. It's fixed. It's okay. It's fixed. Did we make sure we have everything on there? Do we have we can't go out in public. You gotta make sure all the things are covered, right? Okay, good. Oh goodness. But anyway, let's move on. I do have some things to talk about, so let's go ahead and get into them, dude.
Do it. Do it.
Yeah. So now I thought this was interesting, but we'll just go ahead and start out with this one here.
Stranger Things creators, the Duffer Brothers, respond to Millie Bobby Brown's complaint they don't kill enough characters. Millie, I agree with you. Long-running shows like that should probably
Yeah.
kill characters.
Now I'm going to get into a little bit what old Millie here has to say, and it's clear that she has her own agenda. Yeah,
Oh, of course, yeah.
obviously. But
Is that agenda to look like a 40-year-old woman at
well,
18? Because she
here it's
does.
the thing. She is 18, and I did bring up
Yeah.
a photograph, and I'm not bullshitting you. I'm not tricking you. This is not photoshopped. This is this 18-year-old girl. I shit you
Yeah.
not, dude.
She looks older than my wife, and my wife is in her mid-30s. Genuinely.
To be fair, I have no problem with this girl whatsoever. I don't know anything
Nope.
about her. But oh man, the English syndrome, dude.
Yeah, they're not a
Damn.
pretty people.
No.
Them Brits, they're not pretty people. I don't know what to tell them. I'm sorry.
Well, it's
You did
weird
not
because
win the genetic lottery in looks.
no,
You didn't
and
do it.
they're coming from an original Aryan root, right?
Yeah.
Both of them. But that German and that Brittonish that were there and that mixing during the Anglo-Saxon wars, after the Romans left. And of course the
Right.
Roman maybe the Roman mixing had something to do with it too. Like in Ireland you have Black Irish and those are coming out of the Romans, right? But
Yeah.
it just not a good mix, dude. It's not a good mix for some weird reason. It's just not. It's kind
Just
of
didn't
like
do well.
the Mexicans.
Oh. Well,
Am
see,
I,
here's the thing,
am I
though.
allowed to say that?
Mexican ladies, and I've
Well,
been into Mexico.
Spanish ladies.
Well, the ones, but also Mexican ones. a lot of them are really, 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 really pretty and sexy, and then they hit like 30, and that just is gone.
Yeah.
They go from looking like freaking what's her name? Oh, the actress lady in and my brain just lost her name. But they go from looking like that gorgeous actress lady who still refuses to age to well, some sort of goblin creature. It's it's very
Yeah,
terrible.
it
It's a
is bad.
shame, in fact.
Yeah. I was talking more IQ, but shh, shh, shh.
Oh,
Um, but no, it's true. And to be fair, there are some Scandinavians that age
yep.
really well. Not all of them. I think the most consistent aging people that have the longest wall, let's call it a wall,
Yeah.
are the Asians
Yeah,
because
they're basically elves. It's
it
ridiculous.
is, or I call them dwarves here in Japan. But they have all the tendencies. But yeah, no, their wall is way pushed back. Now, to be fair though, one of the problems have that I see a lot of Westerners have when they come over here, and it doesn't matter what race you are, but just not from Asia, right?
Yeah.
Is they come over here and they see these, usually small, and elven featured people who
Mhm.
whose wall is way deep into like 70s 80, right?
Yeah.
That and they think they're all beautiful, and they don't give themselves enough time to acclimate their eyes.
Mm.
Because this is a weird thing about humans, right? It is a very bizarre thing. When I use the word average and I say, hey, that sandwich shop over there is average sandwich shop, would you go eat it?
Depends how hungry I am,
Right?
but most likely no.
More than, well, maybe not, because maybe you know a better one. But if I
Right.
say it's average, you're not going to turn your nose up because all right, well, it's average, right?
Yeah, it's fine.
Average this, average that, and it's not a bad thing. It's just average, right? Sure,
Right.
we would like above average, but average is not bad until you come into the category of beauty.
Oh yeah.
And
An average is a
average,
sin.
it's interesting, isn't it, that we've skewed the word average in this regard, because an average looking person is not attractive in
Yeah.
reality. So we don't use the word average in this way. And I kind of wondering if that's not how that strange numbering system came up. I don't know who created
Probably.
that, but I wonder if that's because it confused the brain, you know?
Hmm.
Because average humans are not necessarily very attractive. They're not. They're not attractive to what where our brains think, right?
Right.
So it's weird when it comes to beauty. But this
And
poor,
the worst part about with this girl is it's not even so much that she's ugly. It's just that she's aging so rapidly in the
no,
face
no, she's
that it's
ugly.
making her look. That's true. She's wearing a lot of makeup. That's helping.
Yeah, it
And she
is
does have
helping.
a serious man jaw. Like
Yeah, she's
that looks
just
like a
not an
dude's jaw.
attractive girl. And like I said, the English is some, when you get, and I do apologize to the English ladies. And
Yeah.
I'm not talking about the Celts, I'm talking about the English in particular. And of course, we can also throw the Romanians and some of those other Baltics in there as well. Not pretty people.
Yeah. No, they're not.
Not
They're not the
pretty
best.
people. Yeah,
Not the best.
not the best.
Um.
But beyond this, and her unfortunate, because I don't know anything about her. I saw season one. She was a little kid. It was fine. They were kid actors and standard kid actors, and it was mediocre show. And
Right.
it sounds like season four is much better. So cool.
Hmm.
Uh, uh, you got the most roundabout the way you say butterface. Oh well, I'm just saying she's not pretty. I was pretty direct about it. However, I'm kind of wondering if we can read. Oh my God, this girl. I wonder if we can read into what she really wants. Now, she says that one problem the show has, the cast is too big, and she blames the show's creators, the Duffers, whoever they are, for not killing off enough characters. Well, we don't want to get all Game of Thrones, do we? I mean, they went a little bit too far, don't you think? But in an interview, she says she called them sensitive Sallies, sweet, using a female term to disparage. I'm all on.
Ooh.
She's red pilled. She's a Republican. Get her.
Uh-oh.
Um.
Uh-oh.
Well, that's right. Right. That's how they
I'm
say.
surprised they're not trying to spin it that way, yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
Uh.
I agree with her though, wholeheartedly. I think
Sure.
if you're going to have a show that continues like this, where they keep upping the stakes, somebody needs to go. Doesn't have to be the whole damn cast, but at least one of them every once in a
Well,
while
I
needs to
think
go.
she has one in mind.
Uh-oh.
Yeah. She joked they need to start killing more of the main people in the cast, including her character. Hmm.
Yeah,
I have a feeling she wants out.
looks that way.
Yeah. And if you go through the article, I really think she wants out of this. Oh my God, you poor girl. Um, yeah. And, fair enough. She's been doing it her life. So, and she's, I'm happy for this girl to get any kind of work she can get. I don't know if she's a good actress or not. I have no idea. Although she certainly made a name for herself, I guess. But she is and I hope she finds a lot of good work. I really, really do. But she's a bit of a victim of that thinking that's been going on here for about this length of time, whereas you can't have pretty things anymore, right? And she was chosen specifically because she was unattractive, just like Daisy Ridley was chosen because she looked like a boy. That's why they
Yes.
chose her. It was because
Yes.
you can't have pretty things, and
No pretty
therefore
women.
no pretty women, and she was chosen as well. I genuinely hope that this girl finds good work though, but she wants out. She wants it. She wants it out. And
Well, Hollywood's
fine.
done that before too, right? I've mentioned the late '70s specifically, but they've done it before with other actresses who, I'm sorry, they just aren't that talented. But for some reason, they just kept getting work, and everybody kept praising them. There's numerous examples of this. She's
Sure.
really young though, and typically those aren't young actresses where that happens. It's ones who are older or whatever, who they can make the excuse of, well, they're older now or whatever. Um, but I don't think she's a bad actress by any stretch. I think she's perfectly fine. She even has potential to be great.
Hmm.
She's still really young, for one. Um, but I genuinely think, and I've been saying this for a long time, that this air of de-beautifying females in Hollywood is ending. And I think
Maybe
it's simply ending just because people like pretty women.
we do. Well,
Everybody.
pretty men. We like pretty things,
Well,
and
we've been getting plenty of pretty men. I mean, a lot, especially in the MCU, a lot of those dudes are women love them. They fall
yeah,
all
yeah,
over
yeah,
them.
yeah, yeah. That's true.
Chris Pratt, I'm looking at his face right now because the wife and I were watching the Terminal List,
It's good.
and I
It's
thought it was at
good.
the end, but there's still 3 more episodes. I was like, holy crap, man! They must
No,
have threw a boatload of money at Pratt for this. Holy cow!
dude,
Um,
it's good.
it is good. I really like it. And this is by far Chris Pratt's best performance of his whole
Yes,
career,
it
I'd
is
say.
good. And I'm not going to spoil it. Oh my God,
But
it ends awesomely. By the way,
But all of that aside, I think that's coming to an end. I think they've lost the argument, and like I said, they've done this before, where they propped up a bunch of mediocre to ugly-looking women and said that these were your starlets now,
hmm
and it just kind of didn't take. Then the '80s
no,
happened, and we were right back into the super ridiculous,
because in
you
the end,
know,
it's always about money. But with
yeah,
this girl here, I hope she takes that opportunity and just rolls with it. I really do.
yeah, become a
And
producer and stuff, make the real money.
or
That's the smart play.
what have you, or maybe become a really good actress because converting from being a child actor to an adult actor is hard, and there's not many
Fair.
success stories because kids are not cast because they can act. That's not why they're chosen. They're chosen because they're already the character you want, right?
Right.
We give this example with Hermione, right?
Yes.
The Harry Potter role. They were chosen because their characters were them already. Radcliffe, we can see, although he gives these pathetic, whimpering attempts at feminism, he's just a nice person
Seems
in
like
his
it.
core. is what he is,
Yes.
and that's why he was chosen.
And he
Um,
looked like it.
and he looked like it, and they chose Emma Watson because she was a snotty little know-it-all bitch.
Yes.
I
Which
mean,
is
that's
what
why they
Hermione
chose
is.
her because it's what Hermione is. You know, as they grow, the directors try to get him to do a little bit more acting and more and more and more. And I think we saw that with Harry Potter. By the end, they were actually trying to act. They were
Right.
not very successfully, but they were trying. And Harry Potter is so successful because the cast of characters around them were so freaking good, dude. I mean,
Boy, and the
talk
world was
freaking
awesome.
amazing acting talent around those kids. But we do
Yes.
have some success stories. Kurt Russell, Drew Barrymore, right?
Yep.
So I really do hope because I feel bad for her because she was chosen because she was ugly, and that's mean, dude. It's
Yeah,
mean.
she was
So you,
chosen because she was androgynous and didn't look very feminine.
yeah,
That
and
was the point
and
of her.
I want you to get him, Millie. I want you to get him. I want you to go out there and I want you to become one of the best actresses ever. I want you to make freaking
Yes.
millions, please.
I like that. I like that.
Yeah,
I like
get him.
Success is the best revenge.
It is,
Success is
dude.
the best revenge.
Yeah. But she wants out this show, dude. That's what it comes down to.
Yeah, it seems
She's
that way.
done.
And that's fine. I think it's perfectly reasonable. I didn't really watch any of season 3 either, but I haven't watched season 4, so I don't know if it would make sense for her to just be written off or not. I have absolutely no idea.
Well, she's
But
the
I do think
linchpin, isn't she?
kind of. Well, I don't know. I haven't watched it. I don't know if they've shifted it from it at all. But regardless, I can understand why. She has been getting some, movie roles and stuff. She's in the Godzilla movies,
Yeah,
for
that's
instance.
right. But she's
Um,
not great in those, dude. Though, dude, that's
no,
right. She's not great.
but I can see why. I mean, she's been doing this for a decade now or close to it. Um, they only have put out 4 seasons in 10 years, so it's not like,
Wow.
it's consistent work. Uh, yeah, I think I
Why so
have no
slow?
reason to understand. I have no idea. I have no idea. I don't think it's been totally 10 years, but it's been more than 4 years, that's for sure. You remember, Chester, when not even that long ago, like look at Star Trek: The Next Generation. They were putting out 24, 25, whatever it was, 20 to 25 episodes in a year.
24 is standard back then. Yeah.
Yeah. And now you can't even I don't think there's any shows that put out that many episodes a year.
No,
And
no.
it blows my mind that these actors and whatever, a lot of these actors, this is kind of off topic, but a lot of these actors bitch and moan about how tough the filming schedule was. I'm like, bitch, please.
Yeah, no,
Yeah,
they spend too much
get out of
money in
here.
the wrong places a lot these days.
Yes. Yes.
But anyway, based Millie. Now I know that's going to get a proper response, but I still don't know what based means.
Yeah.
Yeah, no clue.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. I
I
don't
know
think anybody really does. It for a while it kind of just meant like I agree, or
honest, true,
this is a good position in
yeah,
my opinion, whatever.
integrity, I
But
suppose.
it largely doesn't have a meaning. It's just something people say. Like cool. What is cool?
I'm sure it has an inception, and I could probably find it in 2 seconds if I cared.
I think the inception of it was actually drug dealers,
Sweet,
if I remember correctly. It had something to do with drug dealing. And it got, as words are wont to do,
as you do.
it got switched around.
She's a Chad, Ben says. Well, yeah, unfortunately.
Well, I mean, she looks like one. She's got a jaw like a Chad. Holy
Yeah,
crap.
yeah. But no, I'm serious. I'm not kidding at all. I get she wants out of it. She wants to do new things, and I really hope this girl has crazy success just to stick it to him.
I
You
do
know what I
too.
mean?
I do too.
So you go on, girl. You study and please become a great actress.
In
Make
fact,
yourself into one.
all those Stranger Things kids, you know what? I hope they all succeed. None of them. Why not?
Except for the one dickhead. I don't want him to
Well,
succeed.
there's always one.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that
there's always
jackass.
one. Yeah.
But anyway, let's move on here. But you go, Millie. I'm a supporter.
Get him, Millie.
Get him,
You
Millie.
got a funny name too. I like it. Get him,
Yeah, it's awesome.
Millie.
Get him. All right. Let's go on here.
Melanin Gamer.
Melanin.
What?
Yes, I know. It's not a joke. Go ahead.
Melanin Gamers launches The Watch.
Yeah.
Quote,
Yeah.
a digital community designed to eliminate racism in the gaming community.
Okay.
We've done this before, guys. It doesn't work because what you're running into is not actual racism. What you're running into is people being edgelords. That's all you're doing. People who are saying or doing things because they know it's an easy way to piss other people off.
Yeah,
So
no,
they do
it
it.
is. It is. But this is funnier than even that. And
Yes.
you're right, Elrod. There was a reason syndication money. It always comes down to money why there's 24 episodes. Yeah, you're right. But here's the thing. You guys remember the bully hunters?
Yes.
Remember,
Yes.
remember that idiot created completely artificial, and fake and awkward thing that came out of the Steel series,
Yep.
electronics company. Which, ironically, I'm sitting on a Steel series keyboard right now. Um, but you remember all that nonsense, and it just went away
Yes.
because it was so stupid.
And
Well, this
cringy.
is
Yeah.
same thing. Not sure
Yeah.
we know what they're selling yet, but they want you to know that racism in gaming is not acceptable. But
Oh
the
no.
difference is their target here is not really the player, it's the companies.
Oh God.
Okay. But racism is bad. And they also acknowledge that there are other problems in the world too, like homophobia and transphobia. Those are problems too,
Oh yeah.
Thundera.
Big problems. Yeah.
Big problems. It made me laugh when I read that line because it's like, there's only a certain type of ism that they care about, right?
Yeah.
And anybody who's going to call themselves melanin gamers, go look it up. I didn't bother because you know exactly what they look like.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
But now the thing is though, aside from the stupidity of this, aside from that, I wanted to use this headline to talk a little bit about the aggressive and vulgar nature of particularly these FPS games. Talk about that because they are actually pretty raw. Right now, later, Elrod, go have fun, dude. I think he's going to work with Edwin. This is nice. I love that the combination of Edwin
Oh,
and Elrod. It's a great combination. But uh, you know, isms are real. I know that I don't really like FPS very much, but I've certainly play MMOs, and because
mm,
I'm in a position where I actually can interact with people in other languages, which I know is rare, I actually can and do go on and play. I play Chinese games in
yeah.
Chinese because I can get by. I'm not this radically fluent person who could teach in a professor class, but I can get by. And if I see something I don't understand why they're combining these various characters together, I have a dictionary, right? Or I have Google if I need it, right?
Right.
So I understand that my situation is a little more unique to most Americans, right? Because Americans tend to be monolingual, right? They don't tend to have
Hmm.
multiple language skills. But anyway, I will tell you this: that if you have a name that is not Chinese, the Chinese will absolutely dogpile you in the most
Yeah.
racist shit you've ever seen,
Yeah.
just because. And therefore, I put my name. I usually, when I play those kind of games, I put my name in Chinese because I do have a translation of my name is Guo Xiu, is my name in Chinese, right? It's a
Hmm.
perfect direct translation. So I will use that. It's actually on my little chops over here I use for signatures and stuff. I have my name in Chinese characters. But and anyway, so I can avoid it, and I do. Because the Chinese are radically racist. They are incredible bullies to each other as well. It's brutal, dude, brutal. And I've never seen a community worse than the Chinese ever. The Japanese, I've never heard anything. There must be an example, I'm sure, but I have never seen nothing. But the Chinese are bad, bad, bad. So my thing is, this is of course very, this is tunnel vision we're looking at here. This is all about black power and go blacks and go gays or whatever, and it's ignoring the larger problem. Because me personally, I'm kind of curious how we should approach it because there is a horribly raw and I don't know, just outrageous culture in online gaming. And I guess the question for me, Thundero, is that okay?
Yes. You know
Okay.
why? You know why it's okay? It's very simple because it's natural. It's a The reason that exists is because those games specifically are fairly competitive. Even ones that aren't necessarily player versus player still have a competitive aspect to them
Sure.
because most of the players, at least the ones who are, trying to really push the envelope, want to be the best. They want to be better than this guy over here. You want to, let's say you're playing an MMO. You want to get the gear
Trash
that
talk.
shows that you're better than these other people. You want to get the mount, or you want to get the title, or you want to get the whatever the thing is, right? Whatever the milieu is that has got you in this game that makes you want to keep going, you want to get it. So you can then go to where all the other people are and flaunt it, right? You want to show that you're superior because you've done it. A lot of players are that way. I think it's very the vitriol is healthy. And here's why. I think it's healthy for society broadly because it gives people a place for two things. One, to express that in a way that is largely, I mean, it's nothing, right? If you're playing, say, an MMO or an online FPS game or whatever, and somebody comes in and starts throwing a bunch of slurs at your way, and I've had it happen to me, who cares? Like,
Yeah,
does it really? If it does
hit
it
the mute button,
really
really.
matter? Yeah, you can either mute them, block them, or just disconnect, and it's
Yeah,
fine. It's not your life
which
should
is the
not be
solution.
dependent. Your life should not be dependent on someone else's misery. That person wants you to feel miserable, or they feel miserable, or they just simply are a troll and they get their kicks out of pissing other people off.
Hmm.
Do not allow people to manipulate you like that.
Yeah,
Period. Just broadly. Don't
it
do it.
it is
Control
a bit of
yourself.
practice, isn't it? Yeah, to
Yeah,
have a
just
tougher
control
skin.
yourself. And I
Um,
don't think it's a big deal overall. I grew up in it. You came up in it. You already grown and everything, but you've been in it since the beginning. I
oh yeah,
pretty much have too. It's not a big deal. Like,
no,
people pretend like it's this great big. Now it becomes a big deal when it goes from you're just fucking with each other in the game and it goes outside of the game, right? You track
especially
somebody.
while they're bitching and I'm stealing their loot. Yeah,
Yes, you're doxing, or you're messaging their work. Have you seen
so
nonsense like that? And
ridiculous.
just
Yeah, yeah,
doing nonsense like that, that's when it becomes a serious problem. But if just somebody calling you a name in a video game is enough to cause you to have a mental lapse, have a mental episode or breakdown, I'm going to tell you this with all compassion. You shouldn't be playing that game in the first place. You have a lot more problems in your life than what is happening in a video game. Do something about them. Get help and stop blaming other people's actions for your misery, because your misery is most likely your own doing.
yeah.
And that's really all this is. It's a deflection away from people who are miserable, people who are upset about their own lives or upset about the state of the world or whatever.
Or
And
want
maybe
free
they want
shit.
to, or want free shit, and maybe they want to get into a place where they don't have to deal with any of that. I understand that. I get why, and I totally understand. I'm not saying the people doing those sorts of things are in any way, shape, or form right or in the right. I'm not saying people should do those things. Not at all. They shouldn't. What I am saying is that the solution to this problem is to disconnect from them. Don't give them power over you. Doing even this sort of stuff actually empowers them, because now they know they've pissed you off.
Right.
Now they
Of
got you.
course, that's the truth, and for me, it's ironic, and I use the word correctly, because eh, when I was reading this article, and I saw a little bit of on this before with Metacore, but I was reading this article, and this phrase just kept popping in my head: not good.
Hmm.
Non-good. And for all of you Philistines out there that haven't read Orwell's Opus, fucking do so.
Hmm.
It's so Orwellian, dude.
Yeah.
It's incredibly Orwellian, and it's This creates much more harm than good. This is worse than what they're complaining about because
That's right.
they are not talking about policing all language. They're only talking about policing language that affects them. And this is the problem. If you're going to put a rule in, which I kind of lean toward the libertarian thinking in many things,
Mm-hmm.
I'd rather not see any of that. However,
Yep.
if you are going to apply a rule, it must be universally done. It must be.
Correct.
But they're never done that way, right? And it just leads to problems. And this kind of thinking is once again bringing in the HR department. And I'm telling you, you companies in the world, get rid of those freaking things. You're wasting money
Yep.
on them because what they do is they create this. It's the same thing we have with we're looking at right now in the world. Sorry to shift gears on you, but I'm going to. Um,
Uh,
well, no, because we in the West, we're gonna be affected by the upcoming problems. America and Europe more so, but that's a bit orchestrated, right? I think where I'm living is
mhm.
a more honest look at actual inflation and stocking woes. But what's the problem we're having here? With food stuff, is there not enough food stuff all of a sudden? Are those things not actually being produced, or are they simply not being put where they should be, right?
Mm.
And this is the same problem we see. Why, at a core, let's use this food example. Sri Lanka, I don't know what's going to happen to them. I mean, truly, we're going to see a lot of dead people over there, but we're going to see a lot of dead people all over this coming winter, and especially next year is going to be much worse. But
Yep.
the thing is, when you get these kind of people come in and they put in their rules in charge and they're creating their own little community because it's about them having power. It's not about leveling a play field or actually sympathy for anything. It's all about me, me, me. And when they come into power, what they do is they go after and they try to find a scapegoat. A very
Mm.
common scapegoat throughout history is the farmer. It's an easy target, right? And they go after these farmers. They blame them for whatever kind of nonsense. In this case, gamers being representative of the farmer, and they murder them and they push them out and they take their land as they're doing in the Netherlands right fucking now, and all over EU by the way, and America. And then what they do, it's all crony capitalism, right? So they get their buddies get the job. But the problem is, then these idiots get into farms. This has been going on for thousands of years, by the way. It's nothing new. These idiots get in there, and now they got all these farms, and hey, we're in charge now. Yeah, yeah, yeah. But they find out that farming is hard.
Yes.
Yeah. It's
Yeah.
not only physically demanding, it also is intellectually demanding because it's quite
That's right.
difficult. It takes a lot of specialized knowledge. And what happens? They fuck it up and they fail
Yep.
horribly, and millions die, right?
Yes.
And I'm telling you, when you see them going after the farmers and replacing the farmers, that's when you're there. You know you're there. And here we are,
Mm-hmm.
because that's what they're doing right now, guys. I'm not
Yep.
kidding you. The what you have from a historical point of view, watch the farmers. What's going on with the farmers? And here we are. They're taking land away from the farmers. They're pushing the farmers out. They're regulating the farmers. They're having government people get involved. They're having corporations get involved. And these people don't know how to farm. And this food crisis is going to grow and grow and grow. Now, you could say it's orchestrated by this black cabal. Well, maybe in some ways it is, but it's also just stupidity, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, I
Hubris.
know you're saying, well, Chester, what does that have to do with video games? It's exactly the same, dude. It's exactly the same. If you go and you police the specific type of language in video games, you will destroy them.
Yes. I agree. I think there's a lot of evidence to back your claim there too, because a lot of games now, FPS games or whatever, you can't even hardly talk to the opponents,
Yeah,
right? Like there's
they
no
shut it
like
down.
like back in the day, in like Halo or whatever, right? You could talk to each other in game while you're fighting. You could call each other all kinds of names and stuff. They had I can't remember what it's called, but basically you could talk to people around you. Um, you can't do that anymore. At least not from my experience. I played the new Halo game. That's not. I didn't hear any of that. I don't think I even heard from the other team at all in any capacity. So they've already started to do that, and I
They
think
are.
that's a massive loss
It is.
for gaming.
Yeah.
One of the best parts about competitive gaming like that is that you can talk shit. That's fun.
Some people like
When
it.
did everybody got so damn sensitive about everything? It's a video game. Chill. Just
That's
shut it
true.
off if it
That's
pisses
true.
you off. Just that's all you got
Yeah.
to do. Just pop, shut it off.
Yeah,
That's it.
I've never been a trash talker myself, but I also don't say get the trash talkers. I don't really care. And the thing is, now I understand I'm talking about online gaming, multiplayer gaming, and I'm more of a solo gamer, right? Even if
Yeah.
I'm on an MMO, I'm usually by myself. I just like the environment, right? I don't interact with peoples. It's not my thing. But I've even seen it kind of it's migrating down to the single player experience. How many games have
Yeah.
I played recently that I'm choosing my character and some reason there's a new little tag sitting next to my character creation name and it says choose your pronouns. It's a single player game. Why would anyone else need to know my pronouns? I know my pronouns.
Oh,
Well, you know what I
good
mean?
lord.
It's
Yeah,
it's
that's
a
retarded.
stupid little extra, a little bit of coding that need to be put in. I'm sure if Ben was here, he would tell us it's nothing. It's easy to do. Fair enough, but it's like it's a single player
It's
game.
nothing. It's easy to do.
Thank you, Ben. I read your mind,
You
but I mean
did. You,
it.
you, you cast the summon Ben spell.
I did, but it's it's not a big deal. But the problem is we keep saying it's not a big deal. How many little big not big deals become a big deal?
Exactly.
And
Death by 1,000 cuts.
exactly. And this thing, and I'm not an online player. So this doesn't affect me as much. But if as with Thundera was saying, if you're removing basically all aspects of online play, why do it? And therefore
Silly.
it would destroy it. Now, Ben, I'm sure you remember the bully hunters, yeah?
Yes. Yes, I
Yeah.
remember it.
And that silly publicity stunt is what that was. What do you think
Right.
this is here?
Um, Probably the same. So when it comes, so the issue you bring up is a very interesting issue, right? And I understand your perspective on it, but let me just say, from a coding slash business perspective,
Hmm.
the idea of a free and open chat is horrible. And the reason for it is, and it goes just beyond saying, like policing language in the way that you're talking about, but you got to police people from saying, pedophilia stuff or saying, other extremely like violent things, right? There's actually
Right.
a lot that goes into it. And so, from a business perspective, we hate dealing with like an open chat thing. It just is nothing but dangerous and opens you up to liability and stuff, right? And so a lot more companies are getting rid of the chat altogether and saying, you know what, if you want to chat with your buddies, just do it on Discord, right?
Yep.
So that's what Hearthstone did. That's what like others have done, right? And I actually think that's a fairly decent model
Yeah.
because then you can chat with people that you want to chat with. You don't have to see the language you don't want to see, and it kind of reinforces some echo chambers, but like I think the alternative is
Yeah.
worse than in
The
some
hug
ways.
box. Yeah. Yeah. Well,
Yeah,
you remember.
but it's a hug box for everyone.
Well, you
So
remember back in the day before any of this existed, we used to use a little thing called TeamSpeak.
Yeah.
right,
Right.
yeah,
So it's actually, so you're
Vent.
saying go back to what the old way. And it is unfortunate because we want to see progression moving forward. But now you're probably right because my old manness comes into play in this, and I have to push it down because me personally, I'm like, yeah, I don't like all of the nasty nature. And now these guys, the Melanin Gamers, I mean, could they be more racist in their name? These guys are all about the blacks and the gays. They don't and nothing else. They don't care about any other thing. I'm talking about this, and they say so in their own very words. This is not my opinion. This is what they say. But I'm
For
talking
sure.
about it in a broader sense because there is a lot of toxic toxicity
Oh
in
God,
the
yes.
online system, and it's not one way or the other. It's
No, no,
just
no, no.
toxic.
So that's why I joined when I heard you talking about this, because I know so much about toxic online gaming.
Sure.
Um, probably
He's
because I
like, from
participated in a lot of it.
experience.
Sure.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not gonna lie. I mean, I knew guys who would engage in some of that behavior, and I'd ask them, I was like, boy, you went, I can go hard, but like they went like really super crazy.
Right.
And I was like, why? I mean, I know you're not, X, Y, or Z. And he's like, I just like to ruin a person's day, right?
Yeah.
Like
Dickhead.
that's what it really came down to. Like they got their kicks by just knowing that they made somebody like super upset or super pissed off or something like that, right? Um, it you know, it applies to, all creeds and everything, right? There are just some people who are just, built a little differently. And the way that they like to get their kicks is it's the same people who like just revel in gossip,
Yeah.
right? All they want to
Yeah.
do is just see
Yeah.
people's lives be miserable and then just kind of revel in it and kind of make them feel better about their lives and stuff, right? It's cut from that same cloth, right? But applied to an online like platform, it's ugly.
It is.
I
And
think
It
it's.
is. It
I
is.
think if you actually, I don't have any data to back this up. It's just my own personal belief. I think if you look at it, these people are addicted to misery on
oh
a
yeah,
conceptual
Oh yeah.
level.
Yeah.
Now
absolutely.
they have their own misery that they're probably not dealing with, hence why they like bringing it out in others. You know the old saying, "Misery loves company." That's so freaking wise and deep. People don't even realize it. Because if you're genuinely a miserable person, you actually that's what makes people enjoy hurting other people is
Yeah.
because they're
Well,
so miserable.
and I don't know what to do about this. I mean, one of the reasons why I have such a thick skin is because I grew up in the young era of the internet where there weren't
Sure.
all these protections
Oh
and
yeah.
people were
Yeah.
just
Oh yeah.
savage to each other, right? And so like, that's how Fundero and I can get into like our arguments at the end of the day, and like we get pretty terse with each other, but when we're done, we're like, yeah, good going, bro. We'll, like give each other like little like freaking memes and stuff like that, right?
Right.
But we both kind of grew up in a different era of the internet. Where like, ooh, like it was rough,
Sure.
Oh yeah.
and
Yeah. I
you you
understand that. Yeah.
you had to have a much thicker skin than people have on nowadays, right?
Which
Yeah.
So the
which
question,
goes to Thunder's argument though. You've
Yeah.
just kind of made a point for him.
I was gonna let him go. God, he was doing such a good job, Chester, and you
oh,
blew it.
but the question, but hold on, the question is, should people have to go through that, right?
Yes.
And that's a
Well,
different. Well, I mean, I know
it
Yeah.
what you're
depends.
saying.
I mean, it comes down to the bullying question in general. I love
Yeah.
how everyone is trying to police and legalize, or illegalize online speech, which they are. Countries are doing. Japan just upped theirs, made them even more stricter here recently. But yet they're not doing it in the private lives or the real world, right?
Right.
And which is worse. But the thing is, there's an argument that bullying is a good thing, that it
Yes.
actually makes you a more rounded and reasonable human, because we do use shame to control each other, and that's going away, and we see the results. They're not good. They're not good.
I
So
agree.
I understand both sides of the argument. Actually,
I think there's
it's an
another part
interesting
of it
dilemma.
too.
Yeah.
Is it's not going to work. All you're going to end up doing is getting people to self-censor, right? So they don't say these things so they don't get their account banned or whatever the penalty is. But that doesn't necessarily change their belief. Let's say you run into somebody who is a genuine whatever supremacist,
What
Chinese
have you?
supremacist,
Yeah.
right? Whatever. Just because you take away their ability to say the things they're saying to you does not mean they don't still believe the things they're saying to you.
Yeah.
They just go into places where they can say them, and then oftentimes that makes them even more radical than if you had just allowed them over here to just say this nonsense.
You know,
Because what's going to happen is, and this is exactly what is happening, uh, those people who have been banished from the certain places, they just go places where they're not going to be banished, and other people like them are already there because they were
right.
probably banished for the same reason. And now you just have a whole bunch of people with quote toxic attitudes just feeding off of each other.
which
And all
isn't
that
good.
does is create more trouble. That
That's
just that
true.
just makes it metastasize into a bigger cancer, if you want to use, an analogy, than what it would have been if we had just kind of chilled out and let it be.
Yeah,
Now
and let it work itself out. Yeah.
that being said, there's a lot of things people shouldn't have to deal with. But
Right.
unfortunately, we don't live in should land. We live in is land. And the reason why, like you said, a lot of these companies even actually give a shit about this is because the policing of it is such a ridiculous problem for them, that it's easier for them to be like, you know what, because of racism, we're just shutting it down altogether. It's a convenient mechanism for them to get out of it entirely. And we don't really need it anymore. Back in the day, in like Halo or WoW or whatever, social media wasn't a thing yet. Not really. I mean, you had like AIM, right? You had AOL Instant
Oh
Messenger,
my
stuff
God,
like that.
aim.
But you didn't have Discord. You couldn't do what we're doing right now,
No.
but you could do it in game. You could do it in Halo, right? You could get a party of 4 people together and just talk shit all night. That was something you could do. But you couldn't do it pretty much anywhere else except for with maybe some few rare uh, programs that nobody ever even heard of, probably at the time, right? So that sort of functionality that online gaming used to provide largely is a relic just because it's been replaced with
Right.
social media.
But
Right.
there are three things I want to say, and I'm going to say two of them first, so I don't give Ben an aneurysm. Um, first of all, when I do these things, I do try to put things in a cohesive connection if I can, and I do
Yep.
research some of this. And Ben, I went and tried to find out who these Melanin gamers were, and I couldn't
Uh-oh.
find anything, dude. I mean, it seems it's been obfuscated, Ben.
I mean, it's very possible that it's just a scam. I mean, that's not haven't hasn't been unheard of, right?
No, well, no, bully hunters,
People,
yeah.
people, yeah, yeah, people
Uh,
have done that forever. So yeah,
I really would, the way they're talking, you would think I would be able to find an entire website with all their founders and all their information about, because these guys are standing against racism. Nothing,
Yep.
nothing, dude. That's one. Two, what you're talking about, Thundera, is something I've always found peculiar.
Hmm.
Because, like for instance, we've been the past decade or so, we've been going through the pixel revolution, and everybody wanting to
Yep.
go with this low pixel crap. And it's like, dude, my first video game I had was given to me by my grandmother because she had money, and we didn't. I was a poor boy. But every
Oh
year
boy.
on Christmas, I would get an actually good present. One. On my birthday, all I ever got was from my grandma. I got new socks and new underwear. Fair enough. But on Christmas, I get a couple of just cheap shit gifts from my parents because they had no money. But my grandmother would always give me a good gift, and an actual real thing. I had the original Pong.
That's awesome.
You know how expensive that was back in those days? Back in the day, it was very expensive, and
Yeah.
therefore, I've been in this video game shit from day one. Day one, right? And as time went on, we were playing these games, loving it. Atari came out, NES came out, then the PlayStation hit. My God, Xbox, PC gaming started going up. Well, of course, I remember back with the Commodore 64, et cetera, et cetera. And
Oh
as
yeah.
a gamer from day one, I was constantly hoping the graphics would get better. Boy, please get better. And then we get new generation stuff. Oh, it's better, and it's getting better, and it's getting better, and it's getting better. And then all of a sudden, some dipshit thought it was a good idea to create pixel art games. Fucking asshole.
I mean, you know why, right?
Because it's easier and it's cheaper.
Yeah, it opens up a whole generation of like indie gamers, right? There's obviously a market for it. People are happy to pay for it, and there have been some good ones, right?
You get
So,
my point. I know there's been
I,
some good ones, but my point
Oh yeah.
being is that this idea of going backwards irritates me technologically. Okay. And then the last thing I will say is this. Um, I don't. I know it's going to be controversial. I don't really think there is any racism in the world at all.
Me neither.
at all. Because have you ever actually met a racist who truly believes they are superior?
No.
Have you ever in your life? I mean, you got some people, they tend to be sad. They tend to be the opposite of that. They know their weakness and it irritates them and it
That's
pushes
right.
things to the surface. I have never in my life ever met a person who truly, the Hollywood-esque version, who truly believes they are superior to another race because of the race. Never. Never. I've met arrogant shits because I went to a freaking Ivy League university. So yeah, I've met them, but I've never ever in my entire life, in all the places I've been, ever met a person who was truly a supremacist. Ever. Yep, aneurysms have come in. I do apologize, everybody. I had other things to talk about, but their brains are gone now. So,
Sorry, my wife was asking me a
oh,
question.
blame the
No, I
wife.
agree with you. I've been in the circles of the so-called racists. I would cavorted with them, if you want to call it. Had many conversations with them, had many arguments with them, and I never met a single one who genuinely believed that when you broke it down. When you actually have a conversation with those people and actually get to know them a little bit, they don't think that.
No,
Hell, half of them have family members of the race they despise, and they love those family members. They would die
yeah,
for them.
that's true.
Which is that just tells me you're not being honest. It's not. It's not true
Self
in your heart.
delusion.
It's not true.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
Are,
that's.
are
I,
we?
I think I agree with you. To be honest, I think I agree that I've never, and I've been all over the world. I've been to other countries where there's no white people at all. I have never met somebody who, by the stereotype of what a racist is, existed. I've never met that person.
Yeah. Go ahead,
Are,
Ben.
are we? Are we taking racist only to mean the belief that you are superior to somebody, or just being,
By
bigoted
definition.
well, no, but that's not like there's other definitions, right? Like
Well, then you're
this.
talking about tribalism or culturalism. You're not talking about racism. Racism is simply a belief that you are superior to another person simply based upon genetics.
Let's see,
Genetic
dictionary.com. Prejudice,
racist.
discrimination, or antagonism directed against a person or people on the basis of their membership to a particular race or ethnic group. I don't see here. There is the
Oh,
second one, the belief that distinct characteristics or abilities. So you're going with the second
I
definition. So
just went through a complete conversation of why the creation of the Oxford Dictionary was so important.
You
So
did. That's true.
let me
That's a
go
fact.
no,
here.
no, I heard it. You don't need to do it again. I'm just saying that from my little like fat butt sitting here in Austin, Texas, I'm not gonna take you as the higher authority of like language than like the dictionary or something like that. Like I get it, you had a nice little little rant and stuff like that, but I'm just that's just no.
Yeah.
Well, even in that definition, all they're actually defining is prejudice to tribalism. That's all they're
Well, I
doing.
mean, we're getting into like stupid pedantic arguing. Like this is and
Well, yeah,
hey,
it's a
no, but
semantic
like
argument.
yeah, semantic argument. I get into it the same with the left, right? Because like I got into an argument with my buddy who was like takes it that racism always has to have like a structural element to it. So you can't be racist against white people, right?
Mhm.
Because they have like the benefit of structure. And I have the same argument with him. I'm like, that's not the definition of racism, right? There's
Yeah.
no structure involved in it, right? So I don't accept your definition, his definition either,
Well,
right?
they've been
Because
Yeah,
trying
but see
yeah,
now
people with
but I
that
hold
agree.
on. Now
definition.
hold on a
So,
second. No, wait. First of all, Thundero, please I would like you to write down that Ben
Oh.
has acknowledged my authority, please.
Dare, I'd
but
like you to take them, scratch that note off the record.
but no, I mean we don't need to get pedantic about this. The point being is that it's a deeper thing than that. It's not that people don't actually sit there and think to themselves that I am racially superior because of my genetics. It's just not what it is. Culturally, you can think, but then again, culturally, it's true. In no way you can't say that you just pluck any culture out of America, and compare it to some culture in El Salvador, shall we say. You're going to be hard pressed to find a culture in America with all the problems that we have that is worse than what they have in El Salvador. I mean,
True.
you might be able to find it. So therefore, you can say that the majority, if not all, of the cultural groups in America are superior to the El Salvadorian culture. You
Right,
could say
right.
that.
Well, so again, this is where I get into equal arguments with leftists, and I get into equal arguments with conservatives. Like, so that same guy, we talk about like, oh, America's the most racist place in the world. I mean, no, that shows a
No,
lack of
it's
travel.
not
Right.
at
No,
all.
and then you
Yeah.
guys talked about that. You talked about that earlier with your travels over in like China and stuff like
Sure.
that, or dealing with that, right?
Yeah.
So like from my perspective, and this is where going back to what Thunder and I were talking about. I'm the dirty centrist, right? I'm the dirty, filthy centrist, right?
I'll get you. Don't worry.
I appreciate it. I just think that like we're all just like playing like fast and loose with language in a way that is like counterproductive, and like maybe we do just need to say bigoted. Like maybe that's the
That's what it is.
Oh,
Yeah,
you bent
it's
the
well.
knee.
I would.
He
He's
bent
gonna trigger
the
him again.
knee.
I wouldn't even say here. I'm gonna really here.
I
I'll go
said
in for that.
maybe. I said
I wouldn't
maybe,
even
Chet.
say. I wouldn't even say bigoted because if you look up the definition of that word. It's not the way we
Narrow-minded.
use it. It's bigoted means narrow-minded, means closed-minded. But I would just say the term I grew up with, because I almost never, when I was growing up, you almost never heard the term racist or racism. You heard prejudice. That's
Yes,
that's
that's
how I
right.
was
That's
raised.
the word
Everybody was
we
called
use. Yeah,
prejudice. I think
true.
that's far more accurate. I think
It is.
prejudice
It
is a
is
far
better.
more accurate descriptor
Okay.
than saying racist, personally.
And it's just that the word racism has been weaponized.
It's
But
been
Oh,
marketed.
absolutely.
It's
Yes.
been
Yeah, I'll agree with that.
commodified.
Yeah, weaponized, commodified. It's been everything. So
yeah.
Yeah.
But anyway, we'll move on from this. I thought this was an interesting headline, simply because I'm mixed on my opinion. Because I understand
Yeah.
Thundera's argument, and I understand Ben's argument, and I understand other sides of it too. But I think me personally, I'm gonna have to lean toward shame and bullying have their place, and they can make you a stronger person. Therefore, personally, you shouldn't mess with it. But I'm
Yeah.
not going to sit here and say that these communities, particularly these FPS communities, are not radically toxic, because
They
they
are.
are.
Absolutely.
oh god, yes, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. I don't think anybody could even deny that with a straight face. But no,
Yeah.
absolutely they are. I just don't think it's necessarily a bad thing. I think a lot of those people they're definitely not like that in real life, 100%. So they're only doing it there because it's permissible to some degree.
It's the
And
culture
it
that's grown. Yeah.
probably
The
it's
culture.
also there's probably a bit of mental health for them that it actually helps. They get
Maybe.
that nastiness out of them in a place where it can't really do any harm.
Yeah.
And then they just move on with their day. And I
Well,
think
it's the
I don't know.
anonymous
I'm
nature,
of
right?
two minds of it.
It's
Yeah, I'm of
yeah.
two minds with it.
Yeah, I was going to add that. Thanks, Jed. I was going to add that in. It's the anonymous nature. It's being
Yes.
able to be naughty and be, and be explicit and say things that are not nice in common parlance and stuff like that. That's
Yes.
why they do it. Absolutely right.
Yes.
So
You want to hear about my naughty gameplay, Ben?
no, I've heard plenty of your naughty
I
gameplay.
found a cheat that lets me have endless fertilizer in my farming.
Oh. Endless fertilizer, huh?
Mhm.
That really turns me on. I don't know. So
I'm such the worst person to have this conversation with, right? But anyway, let's move on. I don't know who these Melanin gamers, and I would challenge the chat to go find out who these people are, because I couldn't find anything on them. To be fair, I only put about 10 minutes into it. But
Yeah.
I couldn't find anything on these guys. I don't know what this is, right? I think we'll see. It might well turn out to be exactly like Bully Hunters, but keep in mind it is different in regard that Bully Hunters was going to take a bunch of ladies that were going to go into the games, and they were going to murder in game the meanie. Yeah, genius. But these guys are going after the actual creators,
I
the
think
game
most of
makers.
this stuff is silliness designed by corporate PR teams
Maybe.
to do things that they can't do otherwise and to give themselves easy outs for when they want to shut
Well,
certain things
it
down.
could be
That's what
what
I think.
Ben said, that the creators really hate to deal with freaking
Yeah.
online conversations, and they'd rather just get rid of it. It could be that.
Right,
Could be
because
that simple.
it goes beyond just people saying like provocative things, right?
Right.
No, I
Racist or
understand that.
sexist things. Like where was it? There was that place in World of Warcraft. It was one of the early inns where people would like just go in like cyber sex in like the middle
Oh, they
of
still
like
do.
chat.
Goldshire.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Goldshire.
Gulch, exactly. And it's like
Yeah.
it's not like there
Well,
are kids playing this, right? So
how do you do that?
Listen, never underestimate humanity's capacity for degeneracy. Never
oh
do
my
it.
god, yes.
Just don't do it because you're going to always be disappointed, Chester, every time.
Humanity will disappoint you every
unless
single time.
magic has happened, I don't know how I can have cyber sex.
This boy is innocent.
So innocent.
Well, no, I mean, my wife would
Oh.
agree. Anyway, let's move on here. This one here. Now, I get there's a theme, if you haven't noticed, going on here.
God of War Ragnarok. Developers ask for civility after female dev allegedly sent, quote, dick pics. Wait, what? Over rumored news delay.
Okay.
So, a trans or?
Okay.
I'm confused anymore. I don't know.
All right.
Now, I don't know.
I once again, I'm getting out of my depth here. Truly out of my depth, because basically God of War has been delayed again. Okay.
Mm.
Clearly well,
yeah. It reminds me of Halo 2 when they had like a picture of someone's ass in the game file, and they had to completely stop launch so that they could figure out where it was and delete it, so it didn't get the PG-13 rating.
Well, no, Tower. This is not even closely related at all. Yeah, I get your point though, but that's not what this is.
That's what I got out of it. My bad.
Oh, no problem. But that's not what this is about. I get your point. But no, what this is about, I'll explain, is that God of War Ragnarok, which a lot of people are excited about. I did speak about it a little bit about a year or so ago, and kind of the unfortunate they got to have one of every color, right? But in general, people are very excited. The first one was really good. I thought the story was very interesting. I liked it. My son loved it, played the hell out of it. And anyway, it's been delayed again. Now I don't know why. More probably they feel it's not ready and they don't want to put it out until it's ready because they don't want to have the CD Projekt Red thing happen to them. Fair enough, and I have no problem with that at all. If don't put it out until it's ready. I don't mind delay. It doesn't mean anything to me. However, it upsets people because it's been delayed several times. This was supposed to be out like 2 years ago, right? So people are getting miffed. All right, fine. My question is this: you're angry that it's being delayed. I guess some lady is the one at the part of the dev team put out the announcement, I guess, and you decide to send a penis picture to her to express your unhappiness. Why is a picture of your dick representing unhappiness? Please explain this to me, because
we didn't
dick
see the picture,
usually
Chester.
equals happiness.
We didn't see the picture. Maybe he's got a problem, and the boy is just he looked down and he's like, oh.
Well, I want to understand why dick is now associated with anger. Please.
Feminism.
Chester's telling on himself here. He must have just an immaculate penis.
I
That's
do.
what I'm saying.
But But no, seriously, I don't get it. Why would you say? I mean, because I'm in
I don't either.
agreement. And to be honest with you, this company, whoever this is, whoever makes this, Santa Monica Studio, they handling
Yeah.
this really well. All right, because they're like, everyone, calm down. They're not punching back at the fan base. They're everyone calm down. They're trying to bring it down. And I appreciate what these people are doing here. But I don't understand why you send someone a picture of a penis. I don't get it, dude.
I don't either.
Please
don't
explain
know.
this to me, Ben. These are your people.
These are really
Oh, like the company I've been suddenly shoved into with. So I guess so. Here would be my explanation of the situation, and we're going to go a little meta on this a bit. There is an unfortunate, long-standing history of dudes doing that to ladies unsolicited. Unfortunately,
Why?
I don't even know how to explain that. It's a very unfortunate thing, right? And so the act of doing that has kind of culturally turned into sort of an act of violence because, like, let me just tell you, it happens all the time. Like, just being a woman who exists online on the internet, you're gonna get it. Like, you're just gonna get a ton of them constantly.
That doesn't make sense,
Right?
dude.
And so,
If you sent a picture of your dick to my daughter in a hateful way, I would throttle you. I would
Yeah.
throttle you.
you're absolutely right. But my point is that you're asking like, why is this an act of violence?
Yes.
That's why, because guys have been doing this, and it has a sense of violence to it. I mean, would you agree with that, Thundero?
I think we might be using violence a little loosely. I'm not sure if it's
That's fair. I mean,
necessarily intended to be violent.
It's
Aggressive, absolutely. I think
Yeah.
aggression's the
Yeah,
right
but
word. Yeah.
why a penis
so
picture,
dumb.
dude?
I
I
don't know.
really don't
Like,
understand this.
You would convey your point better if you just sent her a picture like flipping her off.
Yes.
Right? Like, fuck you, bitch.
Yes.
Like then I would understand. Like, all right,
Yes.
that's a little
I would
harsh, but at least
understand
that makes sense.
Yes.
I don't get it. He's not wrong. There are people out there, young men who, well, boys,
Tower.
to be
There's
honest,
one right
who-
here. He teabagged in the middle of my goddamn role-playing game. You shit.
Yeah. Hey, we killed that fucking bike trying to show who was boss. We should have the time meeting.
You young people.
But no, there are a lot of males with male genitalia, because I don't know the word anymore. Who do this on a very regular basis, and some of them do it as they think it's a courting situation.
What?
Like somehow this is going to make the women happy that they just got a penis in their face,
Well,
and
no,
now
no.
it'll be all about it.
Yeah,
It's very weird.
I've never
it's
taken a
misunderstand-
photograph of my penis in my life, ever.
So here's
Right?
the problem, right? It's people not
My
understanding.
wife
like,
is cringing next to us. You're right. It is cringeworthy, baby. It's stupid.
It's creepy. It's creepy as shit.
So here's the unfortunate thought process, and I think Thundero's right. I call them boys, and I think or just people who don't understand, like behavior and stuff like that. But like the thought process that goes from their head is, hey, I think it would be awesome if like a chick sent me a naked photo, and then they do like an inappropriate like vis-a-vis on that, right? Like if I think it would be awesome if they sent me a photo, they must think it'd be awesome if I sent them a photo. And then that's how the whole like terrible
you think
thought
it's
process
that
goes down.
stupid?
Oh, absolutely.
Because
absolutely.
universally everyone agrees female body is quite an attractive thing, but I don't know that anyone agrees that penises or feet fall into that category.
You just
some
said
people like feet.
Didn't you
Some
just
people like
describe it as beautiful or something or
No,
great?
Thundero described my penis. As
No, I
beautiful.
said it was immaculate. I did not say
Immaculate.
it was beautiful.
Okay.
Yeah, I got the inference. I felt you. I got you, bud.
Sure, you did feel.
But no, it is a weird thing. I genuinely don't understand it, and I actually am one of those rare men who've had it the other way. A few years ago, when there was a certain community on the internet, and I was moderator in like the chats for them, because I used to do that a lot, Chester.
Mhm.
Some of the ladies, when I would, for whatever reason, we'd be DMing about whatever on Twitter, and two of them just decided I needed to see their vaginas. I don't know why, but they decided it was
Yeah,
time
but
for
that's
me to see their vagina.
solicitation. That's different.
No, I didn't
Um,
solicit shit, is
no,
what I'm
but they
saying to
were
you.
soliciting you.
But
But
that's what these guys are doing too. They're just really
well, if
stupid.
that's what they're trying to do, I guess. But
And
why do it
these
in
dudes
anger
have
though?
never
That
these
doesn't make
dudes have
sense to me.
never they've probably never been in any kind of actual relationship with a female.
Right.
They probably
Right.
have absolutely no idea how to actually, speak to females. They
Don't
probably wouldn't even do so
get
if it
me
wasn't
on
in a
that
business arrangement.
conversation. Don't get me on that conversation. What
Yeah.
are you doing, Thundero? But anyway, hold on a second. Let me give a shout out where shout outs are due, though.
Okay.
All right. Because here's the thing. This is the response from Santa Monica. All right.
Yeah.
Dear all, if it were up to me, I would share all the information when I know about it, but it's not up to me. So please be patient. I promise things will be shared at the earliest possible moment they can be. We make games for you. We get to make games because of you, love. And aw, that's how you respond. That's how you respond.
That's right.
Right
That's
there.
good PR.
All right.
Right there.
Good
Yeah.
PR. And then the lady herself even handled it well. I mean, good on you, lady. Pro tip. Sending me dick pics asking for God of War Ragnarok release date will not, in fact, get me to reveal the release date. To the people who are doing so, when did that ever work for you? Stop it. Thank
Yeah.
you, Michael. But
Yes.
that's actually a very tame response from her. Because honestly,
Yeah.
I would not be mad at
Classy.
her if she got upset.
Classy response. Yeah. It's the same mentality, Chester. You know how, and it doesn't really happen as much anymore, but there was a time when people would flash women. Like they just walk
Oh,
up to them and whip their shit out, and for some reason they just loved it. They thought it was the
The
most hilarious
flasher
shit in the
thing.
world.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
don't understand it. I think people should have more shame, personally, but apparently others disagree because it was a thing that happened. They would walk up and just whip their junk out in front of people. I think there's a lot of that going on too. They kind of get off on it.
Yeah.
Why this person decided to do this for this specific reason, I'm assuming it's the truth because you got to be careful online,
Well, it seems
especially
pretty
since
clear this has happened. Yeah.
especially since the way they're handling it
Right.
isn't like they're not making some big statement. They're just like, "Hey guys, don't do that."
Well,
That's dumb.
but I'm continuing the statement. So he put that out to everyone,
Yeah.
chill out. She handled it very well. He loses his shit a little bit.
Yeah.
Are you effing kidding me with this now? I cannot believe I even have to say this, but don't fucking send dick pics to anyone on this team or anyone in the industry for that matter.
Yeah.
They are busting their ass to make something for you. Didn't spell it right. Something for you to enjoy. Show some fucking respect. Yes, dude. I mean, he's more
Yes.
animated here, but
A little upset,
he's
little angry,
not blaming
angry.
all the fans as we usually see, though.
But he's also correct, right?
He is
Like
correct.
if
Oh, yeah,
He's
exactly.
someone's
absolutely
just
correct.
doing that unsolicited, you're a gross piece of shit. Stop.
Yeah.
Just stop doing that.
Unbelievable, dude. I don't know. And Tower, you were trying to say something?
He's gone. He bounced out.
Oh, okay. He was having.
I
he was having
agree
audio
with
trouble.
I agree with you that the way that they handled it, from what I've seen so far anyway, has been the correct way. They haven't turned it into some grand mission or said, "Oh, why are gamers like this?" Like some other companies have done in similar situations. Gamers aren't like that. People are like that. And it happens all over the world in all different mediums. People do weird shit for attention or because they think it's funny or whatever the reason is. It doesn't really matter. It's just, I think pretty much every reasonable person agrees that this sort of shit is gross and you shouldn't do it.
Right.
Simple as that. Just don't.
Yeah, no,
Just
I agree.
if it comes across your mind that this would be hilarious, just don't.
Yeah, and
Just
I'm going
don't
to continue with Corey here as his Twitter feed here. Now he lost his shit a little bit here. Now I wouldn't have,
a little upset.
But I've been a manager and boss for a long time. I wouldn't have said this. I would have been more, bossy like about it. But here's the thing, don't. But he's calmed down though. So good on him. The answer is not to find someone to blame or focus hate on. Maybe just pay it forward and treat the people that make the things we love with some human decency and respect. Yes, this is not a battle. We are not at war. We are just trying to make and enjoy things together. Love. Thank you, Corey. I like Corey
Yep, Corey.
Balrog.
Corey's a good. I think it's Barlog, but yes,
No,
Corey seems like a good
I'm
dude.
Balrog. Don't
He should go by
correct me.
Corey Balrog.
Yes,
That's a
he
much
should.
cooler name.
And we get some positive things from Phil Spencer. Fucking Phil Spencer.
Phil Spencer.
But I mean, I don't know. I saw this thing and they put out like a little statement. Is where can you create a game we're proud of, one that we hope we'll enjoy playing once released. Our fans inspire us, and we understand the passion and desire for more information. But that passion should be not be toxic nor come at the expense of any human being's dignity. True. Let's celebrate our community by treating each other, every gamer and developer alike, with respect. You know what? I am on board with Santa Monica Studio, dude. They
I like him.
handled this well. I mean, Corey lost his shit there for a second, but it wasn't even like, yelling at the fans. It was yelling at this fan.
That's right.
I like Santa Monica now. I guess I always have, probably. But this is how you handle this. As another reason why I put this up here, because we see so many of these companies just, especially when they're failing, just blaming the fans these days. And it's
Yeah.
not the right way to go. This is how you do this, because
Or
this
they make
action
a
is outrageous. It's
yes.
outrageous. But this
Yes.
is how you handle it. This is proper PR.
I agree. Or they'll make a probably intentional divisive, decision, or change their course in a divisive way at some of these game studios, and then when people, dislike it, they'll put out this big out, turn it into some big virtue signal type deal. But they did not do that when they easily could have, and in fact, that's what most people probably expected. But they didn't do that. They just made very banal statements of displeasure with this person. Obviously, he threw some F-bombs in there, but I have a feeling he probably had just found out from the lady that what just happened, and it pissed him off.
Yeah.
And you should be pissed off. It's not something men should tolerate, is other men being this way around females. I don't care if you like the woman or not, or if you know her. Have some basic decorum, human beings, please. We need that. That is literally what civilization is. And when you start throwing it out the window to make some weird point or whatever the hell the reason was, you're treading some dangerous waters there, bud. You're treading some dangerous waters.
Yeah.
You need to pull back and just have some basic decorum. I don't even like using the word respect, because I think respect is deeper. Just basic manners. Basic
just
fucking manners.
Respect is earned. Manners should be free.
Yes.
But Ben, I mean, we all agree here, obviously.
Yep.
But I think the greater point for me out of this, I don't understand why the hell you would send a dick pic to someone. I don't get this. This is beyond my understanding. However, my big point with this story is how well Santa Monica Studio handled it,
That really good.
and I appreciate that.
Me too.
Ben?
Oh, yeah, they handle like pros, and here's the thing: is like, PR isn't an easy thing, right? There's no standard book for how you should handle these scenarios, especially on the internet and stuff like that. And so, anytime you can handle a scenario like this with grace, it proves the maturity of your studio.
Yeah. No, I agree. I'm really on
Grace
board, because we've seen a lot of. It is important, and we've seen a lot of really, really dumb companies handle things very badly in the past decade, particularly the past 5 years. It's but good on you, Santa Monica. And I feel bad for the lady, because what are you doing, dude? What are you
knock
doing?
it off.
Knock it off,
creeps. Knock it off. And the worst part about it is a lot of these dudes who do this aren't as terribly hopeless when it comes to women as they have led themselves to believe. If certain men I know personally in my own life can find a lady, you can too. Just be a man, and women will like you. It's really not that hard.
Well,
it's not that complicated.
No, finding a woman is super easy. The problem is keeping them. Finding one is easy. I don't understand all of these what do they call them, involuntary celibates. It's really easy to get a girl. That's not the problem. But anyway, moving on from it, I just couldn't believe that shit, dude. Moving on here. Oh my God, she's back.
Oh boy. Speaking of Gamergate personality, rather, Brianna Wu says adoption serves, quote, rich white church-going Christians calls it a pipeline of giving children to families intolerant of difference.
Uh-huh.
I know for an
Okay.
absolute fucking fact that's not true.
No, it's
My
not.
cousin and her husband were denied multiple times for adoption from the state or whoever handled it, agency. And they were very white and very wealthy and very church going. I don't know why they were denied. I think it's because his past he had a history of violent crimes, which was
Oh,
a long
well,
time
that'll
ago.
do it. That'll do
But
it.
it was like 30 years ago.
Doesn't matter.
Yeah, but it doesn't matter. Exactly. I don't think it has anything. I think trying to racialize that is the most, well, it's just stupid. It's just dumb. That's just a stupid statement made by a stupid person who has stupid opinions. It's
Well,
amazing how that coincides.
well, Wu here has been nothing but a troll and trying to get her 15 minutes constantly. She even ran
Yep.
for a political office, but this is completely stupid. If you want to talk about celebrities going out and adopting the African because it's fashionable, like their little poodles in their purses, oh, fine, go ahead. But what do they have to do with white Christians? Nothing at all. I don't think anyone would confuse Paris Hilton or Angelina Jolie as being a white Christian. No one.
No.
Okay.
No.
But the simple fact of the matter is, once again, I've said this before, I'm not a Christian. However, I recognize the good points that the religion brings, because there are good points. And one of those things is bringing us into this modern era, charity and trying to help others. The Christians are, shocking, really good at that. So for you to sit here and say that adopting someone is racism, because that's what she's saying, then
Effectively, yeah.
fine. Let's not do that anymore. Let's just let the world fill up with orphans and leave them to die and wither in those freaking foster family situations, which are abominable, by the way. I'm not
Yeah.
even going to get
Yeah.
into it. It's so bad. But this dumbass keeps being given space to speak, even though she's
And
proven she doesn't deserve it.
can someone explain to me what the problem is of, let's say, my sister and her husband? They adopted 4 black kids. Now they were his nephews. His sister is a complete and total just trash human
Right.
being by
My brother
every
did the same
respect.
thing, by the way. 2 kids he adopted from her
Yeah.
trash sister. Yeah.
They adopted him, raised him. Unfortunately, because of the stuff that one of them had been through, he ended up killing himself. But the other 3 are all functioning adults, doing well, have families or starting families or whatever. They're just normal Americans by and large. Those kids are infinitely better off because my white sister and her white husband adopted them from their white mother and their black father because they were trash people. This type of rhetoric here, all it does, whether intentional or not, is take people like that and demonizes their righteous decision that they made, their charitable decision. They didn't have to do that they made to try and give these boys so they could, 1, stay together, because if they got thrown in the system, they would have been scattered, and 2, try to give them something that looks like normalcy in their lives. It takes that decision and makes it lesser. When all of our effort in our culture should be the opposite of that. Is it should be, like you were saying, the Christian ethos to be charitable to the less fortunate, right? At least that's what they're supposed to do. Whether or not Christianity always achieves that, that's for debate. But the ethos is the ethical decision in Christianity, the correct philosophy is charity.
Yeah.
That's what that is an act of charity. Yeah, and all you're doing here, whether you mean to or not, what you're doing is you're throwing water on the flame of charity for good people who oftentimes are rich, white-going Christians. Well, not that matters. To do the right thing and try and help people who need help.
Right, altruism, philanthropy, things like this. Are we going to cancel these now? But Ben, I mean, honestly, is this really, you think, the way of the left to cancel adoption? Is this really
No,
a smart way to go?
no. I mean, it's just provocative stuff, right? She doesn't speak for the quote unquote left, right? And I think she's just misguided in her attempts at providing rhetoric and criticism and stuff, right? Like, if you want to, criticize white people, there's tons of people with things to criticize them about. There's valid things. This is just a miss.
Yeah, no, that's fair. All right, well, we'll leave it at that then. She goes on a little bit of thing if you guys want to read it, but I ain't giving any fuel to this person
Yeah.
because we all remember her from Gamergate quite well.
Oh yeah.
And do remember, Gamergate, if you guys aren't aware, was about the journalist in cahoots with some payouts in the form of sex and other things. And
Yep.
the gamers were calling that out and like, well, dude, we want to be able to trust you when you put out an article rating a game. We need to be able to trust that. And it got twisted into transgender hate. That's what it got twisted into. It's outrageous because they were way guilty, proven
Yep.
guilty.
100%.
But they flipped it with this lady and Zoe Quinn, who was really kind of the center of the start of it, although it wasn't just her,
Catalyst.
and the Sarkeesian lady.
Yep.
It's ridiculous. I'll move on, but this is stupid. Don't chastise people for trying to be helpful, right?
Right. Even if they're not being helpful, at least recognize that they're making the effort.
Yeah.
Because otherwise, you just cut the legs right out from under the table, and the whole table comes crashing down. That's all you're doing.
Yeah. Go ahead, dude.
6 Dutch political parties submit motion to ban loot boxes from video games sold in the Netherlands. This is one of the rare times, Chester, where I agree that certain things should be banned. I don't like loot boxes.
Well-
I think it's gambling, and I think it should be at least heavily regulated, if not banned outright, because it is dangerous. It's a mental addiction, and it's hard to break.
Well, if
Very
you look,
hard.
if you notice the theme here, we're talking about policing things, right?
Yeah.
And control of speech and control of this or that, whether we agree or not. But Europe has been pushing really, really hard against these loot boxing situations. And there are already other rules in place that are causing all manner of consternation for these gaming companies. This one is, of course, it's a motion. It's not actually passed. This one is a complete and utter ban, right? Whereas the other ones are a little tamer. Now, I agree with you that this is gambling and it's being peddled to children. That's the issue I have. If you're an adult and you're playing FIFA, EA's FIFA, and you want to throw thousands of your dollars at a stupid game, well, good on you, right? But the problem is children, and that's the arguments happening in Europe. And I'm curious, Ben, this is kind of more in your wheelhouse. Um, this is happening in the EU. It's happening. These things are gonna. It's just gonna. Obviously a cascade is going on over there. Do you think
Right.
this will come over to North America though?
Very likely. There's a lot of things from a coding perspective that the EU does, which is good, right? I know we like to trash on the EU, but they actually do a lot of good things in regards to technology. So, like the GDPR, where they passed law about identification in your data belonging to you, and
Mhm.
companies that
True.
have
That's
stuff
a good
like
point.
data. And that's had cascading effects on all major IT companies, and a
Yep.
lot of them have provided the GDPR benefits to United States residents, even though they didn't have to, just because they're like, we don't have to code 2 solutions, right? That's what it really comes down to. Developers are inherently lazy, right? Never underestimate how lazy developers will be. So rather than try to code 2 different solutions, they were just like, you know what, we're just going to do GDPR across the board. Same with like the laws about like plugs for your devices, right? They passed that law about USB cords, like you can't have proprietary plugs, so that you have to pay like 50, like Apple wants you to pay $50 for like an iPhone charger, right? And that's just ridiculous.
Yeah.
Like, no. We're creating a standard that everyone has to adhere to. We can update the standard, which they are. USB-C is a new standard, right? And so that again has cascading effects where all of your devices. I think Apple just pays the fines because they're like, screw it, we want the extra
Right.
money.
Nintendo
But
does that
but
too. Yeah.
yeah, but for the most part, like the things that Europe does have cascading effects that can be felt here in the United States from stuff like that. And
Mhm.
I think what this is one of those ones that is a beneficial change. I know that some people find it controversial, but when you get into the loot crate system in like you said, FIFA, like the FIFA is not like a mature rated game. There's no way to restrict that elegantly to only kids, being subjected to loot boxes and stuff like that, right? So
That's
there's
true.
not a good
That is
there's
true.
not a good I always think about it from the programmatic solution perspective, right? Because that's my kind of specialty in some of the stuff that I deal with. There isn't a good way to handle that programmatically, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so that's what it really comes down to is what is your solution from a programmatic perspective, right? And so, but yeah, Europe has been the leader for a lot of, I think, positive technology changes like that, where they apply for all the EU and the dev companies, the computer companies, out of pure laziness, are like, well, we don't want to program two solutions. We're doing one, and we're applying it to the EU and North America.
Yeah, no, I agree with that completely. And the EU does a lot of things I don't like, but in this regard, they have been pretty good with technology stuff. I'm just really curious because America doesn't seem to be making any movement on it. And this is broader than just loot boxes, by the way. Like for instance, Twitch is a good example. Now, Twitch,
Mhm.
they find themselves in a bit of a conundrum, I think, because they have been trying to deal with some of the problems on their platform, but they're also compromised by their ethos, the modern, leftist ethos. And Twitch needs to do something because the problem they have is it's supposed to be family friendly, right?
Mhm.
And that's why they keep kind of trying to do little things here or there with these thoughts. But they need to do more. And if they won't do it, they need to be policed because I kind of think a lot of companies, these big companies in particular, smaller companies are different, but big companies, there's like a war going on inside inside their boardrooms, I think, because Twitch clearly knows they need to deal with it because these people are complaining because my kids I gave them, this allowance to deal with watching Twitch or whatever for video games, but now I find out they're spending it on these girls that are half naked trying to sell sex and getting to go over the OnlyFans. So I understand the consternation, but Twitch can't fix it because they're so caught up in the politic, even though clearly they want to fix it. So, unfortunately, it looks like these kind of things need to be much broader than just loot boxes. There needs to be, I don't know, dare I say, Thundero, a an internet bill of rights.
Oh, oh, I like that. I like the sound of that. Yeah,
I can't
that's
believe it
good.
came out of my mouth. Someone should slap me.
He's learning. That's good. He's getting there. The bugbear sometimes is slow, but we get him there.
Let me
Um,
IM Junko.
What was that, Ben?
I
I said, let me instant message Junko. I'll have her
Yes.
slap you.
Okay, thank you. But I don't know, Ben.
It's hard. So here's the common problem, right? And realistically, what we're dealing with, it's the Tumblr problem, right?
Mm.
Tumblr wanted to clean themselves up,
Yeah.
right? For completely understandable reasons. They had, and come to find out, like 95% of their platform was just pornography, right?
yes.
Was
And
it?
so,
Okay.
oh yeah, it was an unbelievable amount, right?
I have a
So they kicked,
degeneracy.
yeah, and so they kicked all of that off the platform, and then the platform died, right? And nobody goes to it anymore. And so
It's true.
what you're talking about is like these companies have to make a decision: are we committing suicide, right? And that's the problem um, that Twitch is up against right now,
Yes.
right? Because so you're talking about the hot tub streams, right? And that's a
The
big
thoughts, yeah.
controversial thing. Yeah, yeah. That's a big controversial thing for Twitch right now,
Yeah,
right?
because what it's supposed to
Because
be, right?
but the problem is that at its core, Twitch makes money by having eyes on the screens, right? From advertising, right? Well, unfortunately, when you have stuff like that, you have a lot of eyes on the stream, and they're making lots of money. So you're asking these companies to purposely like downshift their revenue stream for the sense of of decency, right? And so, but then like, should they advertise themselves with as an adult theme? You're like, no, you like you said, they were supposed to be around, about kids and games and stuff like that. Obviously, that's shifted,
And
right?
then they
So
should shift their rules. They should change it. Say, well, we're not that anymore.
right. So, so my point is that these are very complicated subjects, and there's not always a clear answer to on them, right? Um, And so Twitch, I think, like most online companies, especially because it's still a young online company, right? This isn't like something that's been around for a long time, right? They're dealing with this problem that a lot of other young internet companies deal with, and there's not always a good solution. And I don't think they necessarily understand that.
Sure, because coders aren't necessarily bosses.
No, that's when we see this all the time. The story of Zuckerberg and the Uber guy, like the devs make terrible CEOs.
Yeah,
It's just the
true.
way it is,
It is true.
right? I'd even apply that to Elon. Elon, I think, is a terrible CEO,
Well,
right?
Tesla didn't do well until they kicked him out.
Right. Yeah. So okay.
I wonder if
Why are
most
you
people.
triggering me?
Well,
You're
you know it's
triggering
true.
me, Chad.
I mean, it's true. I mean, and
No,
I
no,
don't know.
I'm not. Yeah, but this is one of those subjects that I can like go on off on a rant on real easily. So.
He loves. Don't let him lie. He loves Elon Musk. And does he loves him? Can't get enough.
Well, I mean, Elon has there's some value to the dude, but
Oh, there's a lot. He's the
he's
most valuable individual in the world. In fact,
he's a
according to the
visionary.
metrics.
He's a creative type. He's not a leader. And besides, with Elon Musk, another thing people don't talk, because I think most people don't realize that Elon is not in charge of Tesla. I think most people don't realize that. I think a lot of people also don't realize that I want to say 80%. I'm going to say 70. I'm going to be nice. 70% of all the ideas and the shit he puts out there are absolute failures. Absolute failures. And he has sucked a lot of money out of a lot of government peoples and a lot of independent investors that have gone nowhere. Nowhere. But then again, that is the process though, right?
It is.
So I understand the hate of Elon Musk. I get it. So I'm assuming you're in Thunderfoot's camp, Ben. But I think he has value as far as he keeps putting ideas out there and keeps trying to get stuff, and he hits occasionally.
I think. What's the right way to say this?
Honestly,
I think he's a guy who got a lot of press really early on into his career.
true.
And I think he has let that go to his head in a really big, bad way. And he is not. I think he truly believes he's Tony Stark. I think he truly believes in a part of his brain.
True. That is true.
And he is not that guy. He is just not, right? But he wants to think he is, and he wants to act like he is. And that's part of the problem with Elon.
Well, going after Tony Stark, it's not Tony Stark, Johnny Depp's girl, fucking her, and then pulling the cuck card on Mr. Depp. It's pretty Chad mood though. Well, it's pretty Chad.
Well, in fairness, though, I mean, I don't think that's a door that's hard to get into.
No, I don't think
so. Especially if
she's
you got all
pretty
kinds of money, I
but-
think it's pretty easy to open
But I mean,
that
it's
door.
a Tony Stark move. I'm agreeing with Ben. No, I think he definitely believes that. He's in his own hype. But I'm just saying, I know a lot of people who are in the know really don't like Elon Musk, and I get it. I understand that, and I agree. But I do think, as far as an idea guy, he has value. Like I said, only about 20% of his ideas actually come to any fruition. But that's more than most.
As somebody who has to deal with him tangentially,
Mm,
it is a nightmare. It
yeah,
is a nightmare.
I imagine.
So,
Yeah, no, he's very full of himself.
No,
Yes, yes.
no.
Well, a lot of those self-made men are quite like that.
Yeah,
Donald
or
Trump was
ones
another
who
example,
purport
right?
themselves to be self-made. Yes.
Well, I
Um,
mean, Elon Musk is somewhat self-made. I mean, I understand he got a lot of luck and all, but that's life, right? Donald Trump is another
mhm,
good example. I mean, sure, he comes from a wealthy family, but not that kind of wealthy. He went out
right.
there and he sucked up his own hype too. No one's going to sit here and say that Donald Trump isn't an absolute raging egotist. Egotist, no way.
He's an ass.
But yet
Yeah,
he did go get it done, dude. He got it
he
done.
did.
As a matter of fact, he got it done
Yeah.
a lot better than Elon Musk did, even though Elon's
Well,
richer.
what surprises me about Trump specifically is everybody here has been knowing Trump pretty much our whole lives.
Yep.
Chester, not so much, but me and Ben, definitely. He's
Oh
always
no,
been a cultural
I know
icon.
him more than you, dude. I grew up in the
Exactly.
New England. I grew up with him in the
So,
TV all the time.
what shocks me is how people are surprised about
right.
how he behaves. I'm not
Yeah.
surprised at all. I knew
No.
exactly how he was
Man.
going to behave.
Thing.
Yeah. But
Yeah.
anyway, it's odd that those two do kind of fall into a similar category, don't they?
Mindset.
Yeah, very
Yeah.
similar. But anyway, I'll move on from this. But
I will say my last word on this is I agree with it. I typically don't. I typically would fall the way you fall, Chester, when it comes to these sorts of things, is
yeah,
let people make their own choices. But gambling, we've learned a lot about over the last few decades, especially with online gambling, and it's very dangerous. It's so easy to get yourself screwed up and screwed over
yeah.
that I don't think it has a place in video games. I just
Well,
don't. I don't have any problem with online casinos existing and stuff like that because that's different. You have to actually seek it out.
yeah,
But this sort of behavior is very predatory because it comes to you in a place where you're not necessarily expecting it, or it comes to you from a direction to where in order to keep playing the game you've probably already been playing, most likely you're going to have to throw some money at them, extra money or more money or whatever. And I don't like that rubs me a wrong way,
yeah.
and
No,
I think that it shouldn't be permitted in video games personally.
we need to support parents. We
I
do
agree.
need to help them out where we can. But anyway, we'll move on from this. We all agree. We all agree. Which is, it's odd. We kind of agree like 99% of the time.
I think we're going to agree on this one too. Actually, let's see what we got.
Yeah, no, this is
I like the picture they
1 minute.
Well,
Go
wasn't
ahead.
that insane? Hold on, yeah, go
Yeah.
for it.
Kojima
Yeah.
Productions considering, quote, legal action against false claims Hideo Kojima was Shinzo Abe's assassin.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I agree. They
please.
probably should.
Please.
And the internet, man, it's a place of wonders and horrors existing simultaneously. And you have to either love it or hate it. And this is a time where I think everybody loves to hate it because what the hell? Like, what the hell, man?
Yeah.
What is wrong with you?
know,
Why would
it's
you pick on
ridiculous.
Hideo like this?
I know
Of all
it's
people.
outrageous, and he should definitely do this. And I love it that his good buddy is going to deal with it for him. You get him. Go ahead, Ben.
Well, you know what's kind of, in a weird sense, beautiful about an incident like this is that it's one of the few things that can happen that is completely non-political. That the right, the left, everyone can come together and be like, "What the fuck?" And we all completely agree that it's ridiculous,
Yes.
insane, and somebody needs to be punished. So
Yes.
And in fact, I vote for this actor whose name just escaped me when I was trying to bring it up. I vote
Reedus.
for him getting to just literally punch the guy in the face, and then they take a bunch of his money. I like that. I think that's a good punishment. Just give him a good hard one right in the mouth, bust out some teeth, and then we'll move on.
Yeah.
I think that's reasonable.
It is. It's outrageous. I mean, and it's kind of speaking to this Western culture problem. We talk about a lot of these Western culture problems here, and whatever side we lay on it, we talk about it. And one of the big problems we're seeing that I've been talking about for years on this channel, mainly I guess with comic books, but it's a universal problem. People do not do their due diligence. Do people even know the meaning of this word anymore? Is it even in the lexicon anymore? Because we do not see people doing any due diligence whatsoever. It would have taken very little time and effort to know that Kojima did not kill the former prime minister of Japan. It would have took what,
Fuck's sake.
30 seconds of due
Like
diligence.
Kojima doesn't have better things to do. First of all,
Well, more importantly, they don't look anything alike. For one, they're
no.
not similar at all. Kojima is a gamer hippie, and that's what he is. And
Yes.
he loves to flash all the hippie liberal stuff. He doesn't believe a word of it, but none of the Japanese do. They just like the symbolism and to wear the shirts, right?
Yeah.
But I mean, Ben, due diligence, Ben.
Yeah, well, that's the problem, Chad, is that better to be first than be right is
True.
part of the mythos, right? So that's the crux of the problem. Is there's more value in being first than there is in but that's the point, right? That's why he needs to punish them. That's why he needs to sue them, because there needs to be
Yep.
some type of punishment, some type of repercussion for doing stuff like this. Because if there isn't, we're just going to keep doing it.
Yeah, no,
Right?
yeah, and I hope he does, because I mean, you might laugh at it, but dude, accusing someone of being an assassin of a political figure, that's not nothing, dude.
Well,
No, that's
but
scary.
here's the problem, Chad. Like, you and I know this because we both lived in Japan. But like, this kind of stuff hits a lot different in Japan than it does
Oh
in the
my,
States.
dude. Yes,
And yeah, I mean, just the act itself, the assassination, was crazy over in Japan,
it
right? But then
quieted
this,
the country for days.
yeah, oh yeah. But then having this, the shame of being associated with that event and everything, like, again, it probably doesn't come across as such a big deal here in the States because we're just used to paying to like stupid news and stuff like that. But it hits so much different in
Sure.
Japan, right?
And
And
I imagine Kojima must have been livid. I mean, he's a laid back dude. I mean, way laid
oh, he
back.
is livid. I follow him on Twitter. He was absolutely besides himself on this, right? It was just insane.
Yeah, it's not right. And of course, this bleeds over into other things because, like I said, some people are going to look at this like, oh, what's the big deal? Dude, it is a big deal to blame someone of assassinating a world leader. What?
Yeah.
And of course, it goes further. It goes into other things of accusations of all manner of people don't get punished properly. We see all kind of people making accusations all the time. We see people making calls to violence all the time, and they don't get called out for it because they're in the correct political leaning of the current zeitgeist. And that's not right, dude. That's not right. I hear a lot of people screaming my entire fucking life about equality, equality. We need equality. Fine, then give us fucking equality, you shit.
Right. I like Mike Tyson's take on it. This is a credited to him. I don't know if he ever actually said it, but I think he said Twitter has made a lot of people comfortable with being disrespectful and not getting punched in the mouth.
Mhm.
Even if he didn't say that, it sounds like something he would say.
It does.
And
It does.
Yeah,
I
it does.
agree wholeheartedly. I think, look, I was an internet troll for a very long time, and I did some things I'm not proud of. If somebody would have showed up to my door and punched me in the mouth, I bet I'd have stopped. But I'd have stopped real quick.
I bet so. Well, one good thing
I think there's a place for that.
Is that I'm the only good person here. That's good.
That's right.
Thank
you are. You are. You're the best.
I'm the good guy. Yeah.
Don't fuel his ego anymore. That's not no.
I don't
do
have
that.
an ego. I'm well balanced. Just ask my wife.
Okay.
He's met your wife, sir. He literally can ask your wife. You better be careful.
She's sitting right next to me eating some ramen and
She's
sushi.
made me cheesecake brownies.
She has. dude.
Oh.
She made brownies the other day, actually. I'm spoiled.
You are.
Yeah. Are you enjoying your ramen and sushi? What kind of sushi did you get?
Sushi. Ugh.
Egg sushi.
Sushi's great.
Oh,
Egg sushi.
Crab.
No.
Is it egg and crab?
Oh, is it fish egg?
Crab?
Oh, I see. It's a crab. It's maki sushi.
Oh, okay. Oh, that's good.
No,
Yeah.
don't.
But anyway, we'll move on. We don't need to spend time on this. Everyone agrees. Dumbasses. And I get them, Kojima. Get them.
Get them.
Oh,
Make 'em
Kawaii.
pay.
So this is sad, dude. Go ahead.
Marvel's She-Hulk star Jamila Jamil, which is a funny name, responds to criticism of her live-action Titiana. I accept every ounce of shade here.
Yes.
Is her quote.
She is aware. This lady. I actually kind of like this lady. Now, of course, they're race swapping Titania. Whatever. What's new, right? But that's not really the issue here. I mean, you can complain about that they're and I'm sure some are. But the bigger
Mhm.
issue is, why is she look like a whore?
Well,
We're back to the Titans and the Cheeto hair horror thing again. We're back to it.
Oh boy,
Because
that was stark. Yeah,
my
I know what you're
God,
talking about.
dude. Because they did a race swap on Starfire, which
Yeah.
fine, you can complain about that. That's fair, but that wasn't the biggest issue for me. It was that goddamn prostitute costume they put her in.
yeah, it was
I mean,
ridiculous.
what are you
She
doing?
looked ridiculous.
We get a better look at this, and I feel bad for this lady, and she gets it. She's yep, you're right. Because there is Titania. This is a much more modern. This is during that recent series they were doing the
That
Udo
looks
stuff.
badass.
Yeah,
Right there.
Titania. Yeah, but here we got a bad CG She-Hulk running. That's good, but oh my God, dude, look at it.
What
Look
in the
at
actual
it,
shit am I
dude.
looking at right now?
Oh my God,
Oh
look
boy.
at the totality of it, dude. Look at it.
Oh boy.
First of all, Jackie Brown wants her costume back.
Apparently, She-Hulk takes place and is set exclusively in some sort of seedy strip club.
I
Because
guess.
holy crap.
And this Twitter is just showing it off and complaining and stuff. Of course, once again the race swapping stuff, which I get that, but and this is one because we see in the top head there's another costume. Is that the same costume? I suppose maybe it is.
I think
I
so.
guess
Yeah,
it
it's just
is.
different lighting.
It's just different lighting. But I mean, all I can say is sorry, babe. You got paid though.
She got paid. She did get the check. Did clear.
Yeah.
That's good.
So
That's good. And the worst part is that she's not like an unattractive lady or anything. It's just that outfit is ridiculous.
Well,
it's utterly ridiculous.
She's way prettier than the girl they use in Titans. True. And you said this before. We are starting to see a shift where they weren't allowed to have pretty girls for a while, and now we're starting to get more attractive people again because it makes money. She's not a bad looking lady at all. I mean, the stupid ass wig and clothing aside, not a bad looking lady.
No, I don't understand why they uglify these women up. It's very weird to me.
I just thought this was a cute little thing because she owned it. She's like, yeah, I know.
That's good.
I know.
That's good. See, that's what we need right there. That's how you handle Twitter hate, quote unquote. You just smile and laugh at it because it don't matter.
It's not her fault.
Yeah, she didn't make that decision.
And the directors and all those people's faults.
It's not like she was walking into the costuming like, no, I want the most whorish looking outfit you can give me, please. That's not what she did.
But it's not the only example. We have several examples of them taking. I guess she would probably consider herself black, I suppose. Taking these, minorities and whoring the hell out of them. Ben, what the hell is that?
Yeah, it's like the weird level of like racism on the other side. I think in some form or fashion.
Something, yeah.
And yeah, so they need to have somebody like sanity check them. They need to have somebody like on the staff who can sit there in like the board meetings and see the stuff and be like, really? Is that really the choice you want to make with this?
What we need, Ben, is we need a bunch of like 60, 70-year-old black ladies in there. Because they'll be like,
Yeah.
no, sweetie. No, sweetie. What are you doing? You
Yeah.
look like a streetwalker. You look like a
Yeah,
whore. What are you
you
doing?
do.
Like, just cut them right down.
Those grandmas would deal with it, baby. And let me ask a woman. I have a woman right next to me here. What do you think of Jamila's new costume for She-Hulk? She's getting a lot of hate, and she's like, "Yeah, I get it. It's bad." What do you think of this? This is supposed to be like a villain character. What do you think of this fashion choice here? Strange. There's a word. She's well. That's a very good observation. She says it doesn't look very comfortable. Fair.
That's true.
It is
That's
true.
accurate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Most costumes, most superhero costumes aren't comfortable, so that's
It's
pretty par for the course.
otherwise bad. Okay, there you go. There's a strange, not comfortable, and bad. Thanks, babe.
She's accurate. Every one of those words sounds accurate to me.
Yeah.
I like it. Yeah.
But I mean, I I don't. There's not a really big conversation here. She's obviously part of the Rainbow Squad, of course. Of course she is. But I'll feel bad for her because this is a shit costume they put you in, baby. And she gets it. Yeah, it is. You're right.
Especially when they could do something really cool with that design there that they were showing
these
up
legs
earlier.
are bad, dude. And it's so cheap.
Yeah,
It's so cheap. Look at how cheap this is, dude. This is
it's
dollar
chintzy.
store shit.
It's chintzy.
It's chintzy. Yeah, it is. So what? And if you're a Jew, don't come at me. Come at him. All right.
Wait, is that a Jewish word?
Sure, of course it is. Yeah.
Of course it is.
But anyway, I'm moving on from it.
I like that she's like, yeah, I'll take it. I like that. I appreciate
and
that.
she
I
is part of the
appreciate
rainbow
that chin.
community too, and she just take it because that other Cheeto girl, she was all upset, complaining and racism. You're a racist. It's like, no, we're not racist. You just look like a prostitute in a really bad wig.
Ridiculous. Yeah.
You look like a fool. Yeah, that's And once again, it's not your fault, baby. We weren't blaming you. But anyway, moving on. Because
what do we got?
she might be her physique, I don't know, she might be good for it. She's probably too skinny. Anyway, moving on. Oh my.
Daniel Kaluuya says he will not appear in Black Panther Wakanda Forever, seemingly confirming film's focus on all-female cast of heroes. Lovely. Just
yeah. Well, they're still pushing back against that, the all-female stuff, even though they keep failing. On I can't think of one that has succeeded. Now, Kaluuya was the I don't know if he's a brother, his cousin. He was the one in charge of the Rhino dudes, right?
Gotcha.
So he's not coming back. But I don't know, Spencer. This might be a little bit clickbaity. Because didn't we have a conversation where it looked like they were going to have two Black Panthers, one being Shuri, and the other one being the White Ape?
Yeah.
So M'Baku is going to be in the movie. It sounds like, so it's not all female.
Listen, I'm okay if they have all females besides M'Baku because he's awesome.
He was awesome. And he's the sensible choice anyway, and this is very unfortunate situation. But we have been seeing a lot of this. We got to do all female stuff, and whatever. I would like to see you do one well enough that it actually hit and succeeded, because you haven't so far.
Yeah.
I mean, because in the concept of an all-female action superhero movie, I have no problem with it, but they just haven't delivered anything worthy of conversation yet.
They just don't draw, really. And a lot of that has to do with what we were talking about just a little bit ago, of the uglifying of women. If you want a bunch of younger males to come see your movie and it's all about women, you're probably going to have to use really attractive ones and make them look attractive. Well, that's just nature.
Right.
Just the way it is.
But we had like Ocean's 8, I think it was called, absolute abysmal failure, and there was a lot of attractive ladies in that. The kind of reboot of Charlie's Angels failed horribly because, once again, Stewart. And that they had a comedic parody remake of that with Drew Barrymore, Lucy Liu, and what was the other one?
Oh, I don't remember. But those made money.
They were fun. They were funny and fun. They weren't. Because the original show was quite serious in its own way. But
had Bill Murray in it.
Yeah,
and
yeah,
Bill
but
Murray.
doing the parody thing that they do with old stuff, they can't be original. Well, let's just make it funny. But they were fine. But that new Charlie's Angels was freaking abysmal, dude. I mean, my God, it was bad. So the
Mhm.
idea of all female things isn't the problem, I think.
No, no, I agree. I don't think conceptually that's the issue. I
No.
think one, we're in an environment where when they do these sorts of things, even my wife scoffs at it
Yep.
because she's like, ah, geez, here we go again.
Because the
It's
politics,
just,
right?
yeah, it's become a political messaging and less of an oddity, I guess would be the word of it, or the phrase for it. Like, less of an attraction. There, that's a nicer way to put
Now, I know Ben is going to have an opinion on this, but I want to give him more ammunition before he goes,
it.
because one of the reasons they're pushing for this all female thing is the Wakanda Forever merch that's been coming out, right? That was leaked, and you see that we have Ironheart is going to make a show up there, which doesn't surprise me that they're switching her to being Wakandan. That actually makes better sense if that's what's happening. However, there's only women here, so okay, that's why they're getting that thinking. And then, of course, we also see the Ironheart shirt. And I have to say, and then I'll let Ben go, is that, changing Ironheart's story away from Tony Stark and being that she's a Wakandan, if that's what they're doing, that's a clever move. That is a smart move. One. And two, that freaking Ironheart costume is freaking, oh my God, dude, it's ugly. Look at how ugly that is, dude. It's such a bad costume. Who greenlit that, dude? Anyway, go ahead, Ben.
I mean, I don't really think I have much to say. It's a we'll see how it works out. Still, I haven't even seen the trailer, so
Yeah, no, that's
um,
true. Yeah,
but it's I don't like commenting on stuff where I don't even have the trailer to look at, right?
that's
Because
fair. Yeah,
I do like to not prejudge too much,
no,
right? And so
yep.
um,
And like I
but
said, I thought it was weird because we talked about the fact that Umbaku, sorry, is in the movie as far as we know, and he's a Black Panther. So what are you talking about? Only women, unless he's the
well, I
bad
mean,
guy.
no, it could just be because they'll do this sometimes where it's just a highlight shirt, right? Where they're highlighting these characters, right? Such like,
Mhm.
they'll do like an Avenger shirt and they'll highlight, the core three, right? Iron Man, Captain America, and Thor, right? And so it could just be in that vein rather than, be for the purposes of excluding, M'Baku. Um, so I don't know. It's really hard to tell because we haven't seen a trailer. We haven't seen, any hide nor hair of like
Yeah,
what the
that's true.
what it is. So.
Yeah, that's true. Although they're going to have a little bit of problem because the way the Wakandans pass authority along is through an unmagicked, untechnology based combat, and M'Baku is going to eat everybody's lunch. Everybody's lunch.
Well, he should. He
Yeah.
should anyway,
Um,
but they'll probably not. They'll probably have the general chip beat him.
yeah, I'm sure she'll easily kick his ass, even though he would literally crush her head. But
Was that in the comics? I couldn't like when I saw that, I was like having a hard time
no, it's new.
remembering.
It's new.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it
it's
just
not.
felt
It's
so
not. It's
weird
not.
for the way they were presenting the culture and stuff like that.
Well,
I was like,
especially considering the bad guy of the movie, he won fair and square, and all they did is undermine it the whole rest of the movie.
I
No,
know.
he
Yeah.
didn't
yeah,
cheat or
Yeah.
anything. He won
No.
fair and square.
Keep in mind with I'll give you a quick rundown on Black Panther. Stan Lee, of course, left it quite ambiguous what that was that crashed into the African continent. He made some hints, but then Christopher Priest came in and he codified Black Panther, right? Um,
right,
and in doing so, that thing that crashed in was a spaceship made of this
right,
mysterious metal called vibranium. But in the movie, they couldn't do that because that means that the black people didn't have the geniuses and created it themselves, which is dumb. But that's why they did that. But and we'll see because I think making M'Baku the Black Panther is, because we're in a very unfortunate situation. The dude died, right? And
Yeah.
it sucks. But fixing it, that's your fix. That's your best fix.
Since
That
he's not
aside,
here
though,
at the moment, since he's not here at the moment, and I can hear him screaming all the way from South Carolina to here, I'm gonna do Grimlock's for him. Just recast it. That's what he's
Yeah,
saying
you
right
could have
now.
done that too. You could have done
Yeah.
that too. Yeah, that's another option. But whatever. And you're right, Ben. We don't know. This is all speculation here. And that's kind of what I was trying to point out because we already had a confirmation that he is in the movie, and now you're saying, oh, it doesn't make sense. But the thing I do want to focus on a little bit more is how bad that Ironheart costume looks, dude.
Yeah, I
That
hope
is
that's not what they're
really
going with.
bad, dude.
Yeah,
It's really bulky too.
It's
I think part of the problem though is that they're trying to distance themselves from Iron Man because
maybe.
but I mean it's in the name, right? Ironheart, right?
Yeah,
But in sort of retconning her origin story a little bit, which I think solves some of your problems with the character, right? You know,
it does.
um,
That's why I said it's
and
clever. Yeah, yeah.
no, and I think it is super clever, right? But you still need to. It
My
still
man.
needs to be a kick.
yeah.
It still needs to be a kick-ass costume, right?
No,
I
you're
mean, but
right.
at the
It's a
end of
bad costume. Yeah.
at the end of the day, it needs to be a kick-ass costume
Yeah.
because people, that's what people want. They want a kick-ass costume, and if it's not, it's going to cause you're just not going to have people care.
Yeah, no, that's true. And keep in mind, Ironheart. Of course, she wasn't Iron. She was Iron Man originally, right? But they tried to fix it and get her more popular, and never did. An absolute abysmal failure in Marvel comic books was this character. However,
Yes.
if you want to sell it to the mundane, the main audience, the mundanes, getting rid of all that political, white man bag bullshit from that character, and just having her be a Wakandan that maybe is Shuri's friend and she's super
Well,
genius. That's a
yeah, I have no
good way to
problem with
solve
that.
it. That's a good way to make it an interesting character. I hope that's what they're doing.
I still think the name Riri Williams is terrible. It's just bad. It doesn't
Yeah.
it doesn't flow off the tongue. It doesn't sound good when you say it. It honestly sounds like you're calling her retarded. Riri. That's what it sounds like.
Well, now you're showing your age there a little bit there, buddy.
Well, yeah, but my point is, I think if you're gonna change your origin, just change your fucking name too, and
Right.
just keep Ironheart's the good name. That's a great name,
And it
actually.
should have been his
Ironheart. I like
daughter.
that.
You're right, but if they're
Yeah.
doing this Wakandan thing, I appreciate that if that's what's really happening. And besides, Riri Williams is dumb because there is only one real Williams, and his name is Remo.
Remo. Ah,
God
jeez.
damn it, Chet.
That was a deep cut. I get bonus
That
Just
points.
so we're clear,
I get
boys,
bonus
Grimlock
points.
did DM me and say yes, he wants them to just recast the motherfucker.
Sure. But look at our man right there playing M'Baku. Dude,
He's good.
I
He's
want
good.
more of him. I want his own spinoff. Give him a spinoff. He was cool,
Yeah,
dude.
That's the
Adrian,
kind of dude that Thundero's interested in. So.
that's right. Give me them big black bulls and these superheroes, or don't give them to me at all.
I liked him. You guys didn't like him in the movie? I thought he was
No,
really
I did. I
cool.
loved him.
No,
He
I
was
did.
great.
Yeah,
He was great.
this is a joke between Thundero and I from a previous conversation.
Oh, it's his
so.
gayness. I know it comes out.
Yeah,
But
it comes out.
Adrian says Chester, the spaceship idea most likely wasn't Stan's idea. I get the argument, but there's hints in the early Stan Lee stuff that he was thinking this way. Kirby was big into the idea that aliens seeded the human race. True, and they so it might have come from Kirby. Kirby created Black Panther, and a lot of original stuff is straight up. Fair enough. But I just give Stan credit because it's Stan Lee. But like I said, but I also clarified it by saying that Christopher Priest codified the character, and that's true. It's just an obvious ripoff of Rihanna's name, is it? He continues. Kirby's idea. This is why you see a very similar themes throughout all of Kirby's work. Same with the Inhumans, Celestials, New Gods, and all that. Yeah, no, I would agree. I think Kirby had intention to do that, but he was probably a little bit cautious about rights and money, I'd imagine. One person who's taken the Kirby concept and gone, I feel, way farther, is Jonathan Hickman, because he said, "Screw it. Every damn thing I do is going to be connected, and I'm going to do it over many years, and I'm going to blow your mind because the first comic I created is connected to the last one. Take that." Yes. Yes, I know you give Stan Lee much too credit. Oh God, Adrian. All right, fine.
He
I'm
doesn't
just
like
going to
Stan Lee.
stare at M'Baku and admire. Yeah,
That's right. That's
yeah,
good. You
that's
should.
good.
He's beautiful. Look at him.
He was just he was the coolest character in the movie, to be honest with you.
By far.
He was
By
just
far.
fun dude, and this guy's made for a comic book movie. I mean, he's in good shape for it, and he's got the right
He's a
attitude.
beast.
His acting, you should use him more.
No, I
No,
agree.
I agree. He should be Black Panther going forward. They should just let him do it.
Yeah.
It makes sense in the lore.
Yep.
It just makes sense. Just let him do it. He looks awesome.
Well,
Hey,
and
Zach.
also, if we're treating the MCU as like just another alternate universe, right? So it's not like
Yep.
the core universe and
That's
stuff like
true.
that. And so when people say like just recast them, like why couldn't in this universe? Because
Right.
again, we're treating it as an alternative universe. This character does become Black Panther. There's
Right.
nothing inherently wrong
Well,
with that, and I think that would satisfy a lot of people.
we've been talking about this for years, Ben, here, and this is a problem, I think, in any fandom. They want it to be what they want, and they can't separate the two. But the reality is the MCU and Marvel Comics are not the same, and that's okay.
Right.
Yeah.
I think it depends on how far
fandoms
you
can't
take
stand
that,
it.
though. It
Well,
depends on how far you take that, in my opinion.
well,
But
in some ways, don't be disrespectful to a
yeah,
character.
exactly.
You
And I
know,
don't think this
like
would be
they
at
have
all. I
been with
think
Thor.
yes.
I knew it was gonna. I knew it was coming.
I was
knew
trying
it
to get
was
him away
coming.
from it, but I knew where he was going. I agree
I
with him.
saw
But,
that train coming 1,000 miles away.
but
I'm
my
right.
boy M'Baku,
I'm right, Ben.
they did a great job with M'Baku in the
They
first
did.
movie. In fact, like we all agree, he was probably the best part or one of the best parts of that movie. I don't think anybody would have great consternation, since you used that word earlier, about him just becoming the new Black Panther. I think it
No.
makes sense, especially with the way they set him up. You could easily say that when they, I can write it for you real quick. When they basically saved T'Challa, right? Because he had T'Challa's body. They did something to his blood, and that's how he was able to get it. Because the flowers were supposed to all have been destroyed.
Yeah.
So
there you
how
go.
are we going
That's
to
a
get other
cheat.
Black
Yeah, there
Panthers?
you are.
They're going to have to explain that.
Right.
There
Yeah,
needs
no,
to be a tie to the first movie that explains it, and that's a perfect way to do it. While they were doing tests on him,
don't. You're
boom, they
giving
got some
way
of his
too much
blood.
credit to these writers, dude.
I know.
We have better ideas here every week than they do. The thing with it is he just melted into the character, and
Yeah.
just this he was kind of made for it. I really would like to see more of this particular guy because he just
Good.
he became M'Baku, and good on you, dude. We won't though because I don't know why, but we won't. Anyway, last story of the day, dude, is
Last one.
the last story
Where
of
we
the
at?
day is looking at
Not that.
the absolute no. I'm going to scroll through here, and we're going to look at the
Uh-oh.
absolute nonsense I had to pick through. Okay. Okay.
Okay.
Because my God, dude, the amount of shit, and I'm starting halfway down the front page, by the way. But look what we got. Rumor: GoldenEye 007 current gen release currently in limbo due to Russian-Ukraine war. Why? Okay. We
What?
talked about this one. Lollipop Chainsaw producer doesn't want to censor Juliet's design. Will negotiate with platform holders to keep remake as close to the original as possible. Well, yeah, because she's a sexy little girl with the what do they call these things?
A chainsaw?
No, the top.
Oh,
That's the problem. I mean, okay. What do we got here? You go ahead and read this one, Thunder.
Ubisoft to end online services for several titles, revoking player access to previously purchased DLC.
That's a big
I saw
deal.
some of this. It's very weird. I don't know what people expected. Like, did you think it was just going to be there forever? Because newsflash, it wasn't.
Right.
It should be though, and this comes down into the fact that you don't have a physical copy of something, and
Right.
their what is it called, Ben? DMR or DRM or the thing where they
it's
can
DR.
yeah
Digital rights management, DRM.
DRM, and they want to make sure you're not pirating their game, which I understand, but they put themselves
doesn't
into
work.
a corner. Well, they put themselves into a corner, right?
The pirates always win in the end, every time.
But
It's
that's
such a
why
wasted effort.
that's the only reason this is a problem, right?
Yeah.
That's the only reason. But okay, there's another. We could have spoken an hour on that. I guarantee it. The boys' most shocking moments. Yeah, whatever.
Oh, boy.
Pokemon Scarlet and Violet allegedly leaked Roundup started. Final, fuck off. We talked about this one.
That one.
I got a war Ragnarok writer Anthony Birch. I tried really hard to make Kratos talk about kissing
Ugh.
guys. It would have been good. Okay, well, he is Greek. Okay, but this right here, Jamie Lee Curtis is being racist. Good on you, Jamie Lee. 10 science influences from Pixar's Lightyear. Oh, wow. Animated shorts are bringing the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Last Ronin story a lot to life. By the way, the Last Ronin run, really good. Go read it.
Yeah,
Um,
they should actually make that movie,
they
but
should,
they
yeah.
won't.
Joker 2 will be bloodier and more gruesome. Lady Gaga not playing Harley Quinn. Yeah, we already knew that. We figured.
Yeah.
We figured. But I mean, it just goes on and on. I mean, we can't have another bunch of whites peoples in our Game of Thrones. Too many whites.
I don't understand why that whole phraseology there is what. So what? Why can't there be white people on the screen? What's the
Well,
problem?
it's a white story. I mean, just choose another story if that's what it's all about. But I mean, it
Yeah.
just goes on and on. Oh my God, you go girl. They couldn't sell you a lightsaber though. Aw. But I mean, it's just ridiculous shit over and over. Ethan's upset because they changed his story, his rebirth, and they took Hal out and put John Stewart in. I get it. I get you, Ethan. I feel for you, man. But my God, dude. It's been a
It's
week.
garbage.
A freaking week. And look at this shit. Now Chet is throwing, Chet Hanks is throwing his dad under the bus. What you doing? What you doing, Chet? Jesus, man.
Your fellow Chet. There's not a lot of you Chets out there.
No, there are not. Yeah. And I started out with, I'm going to come back over the other side here now. But I started out with this conversation in the very beginning of the day. Yesterday, when I got up and I came out to just, my wife was going to make, well, she was eating breakfast. I think she was probably going to make me some. She did. But I was just kind of looking at news and seeing what was going on YouTube. And there was so much angst.
Mm.
So much angst. A lot of stuff about abortion, a lot about, I mean, just everything so angsty. And the thing I have to, and I kind of want Ben to give me an answer on this, if you mind. Ben, I watch a lot of, what's the word, Thundero? Banal. There it is.
Banal, yes.
Banal. I watch a lot of banal stuff. I like to watch people rebuild cars and build houses and furniture. My wife thinks it's boring as hell, but it's very exciting.
Yeah, nothing wrong with that.
Historical stuff, and I like watching this kind of stuff. But every now and then, I'll watch a video to try to understand what's going on in the world. So I'll watch something from a black creator. What are they thinking? Something from a young creator. What are they talking about? Something maybe even from like a MGTOW. What are they on about? I watch these things occasionally, right? Although mainly I watch what I just talked about. However, if I watch one video, MGTOW would be a good example, right? I watched this thing called The Tribe, and I thought it was quite interesting because it had this dude who is clearly not a MGTOW, but he's trying to talk him off the ledge, I feel. But he also had a lady with him to give him a female perspective. I was like, oh, it's quite. They had very honest and congenial conversation. I thought it was quite nice. But I watched one, Ben, one. And then when I turned my YouTube back on, my entire recommended was slap full of them. What the hell?
Oh, the algorithm.
Got him.
Oh, the algorithm. And this is a lot of the controversial stuff happening right now in basically all of social media. It's including Facebook and Twitter, but also YouTube does it as well. They're trying to figure out how to keep your eyes on the screen as much as possible. This actually explains a lot of the problems that you're seeing, I think, socially, because outrage media tends to fuel viewership a lot more than a lot of other things.
Sure.
We tend
talked
to,
about that here.
Yeah. So all you got to do is do one thing like that, and that the algorithm's going to go nuts and be like, "Do you want to see more? Do you want to see more? I got more of that. You want to see some more?" and it's going to make recommendations. It's going to put things in your queue that they think is going to be of a similar nature to, keep your eyes on the screen.
Yeah, but I watch
And
100 car remodeling videos, and one.
yeah, that's all it takes.
Why would they do that?
That's all it takes. Like, there's this famous thing that happened recently. A woman bought a pregnancy tester kit from Walmart, and she was sent a like goodie basket of here's like some baby formula and stuff like that. And it's like, okay, that's creepy, right? You're making a lot of assumptions based off of
Yep,
one
that is
Walmart
creepy.
purchase,
Yeah.
right? And but that's the way viral marketing is nowadays. And we don't have a good way of dealing with it. We don't know what we're doing with it because it's fueling the culture war, but it's also like a terrible part of like marketing. You'll see those ads all the time. You'll search for something, you know, somebody, talked about, this guy, had one of his friends send him an email, like, hey, we're having a baby. And all of a sudden he started getting like, baby advertisements on his like,
Yeah.
stuff, all because of an email that he got from a friend of his, right? So the crux of the problem is like we don't they're so focused on trying to get your business for anything.
Right. It's those quantum computers, dude.
Well, God damn it, Chet, why are you triggering me?
But it brings
Those
up
the buttons. I love it.
I know. It brings up the greater conversation, though. What I was trying to say. Thank you for that answer, though. It makes sense. But therefore, when I came on and looked at it, my God, did something happen this weekend that I'm unaware of? Or has the general population just popped? Because Jesus, dude.
Well, so the Roe versus Wade decision has fueled a lot of exacerbation in all forms of media, right? So that's one thing that people are really like worked up on right now. And then the Ukraine stuff. There's this odd like schism that has worked its way into the parlance, right? Where the extreme left is like on the side of the extreme right, and it is a little weird in that regards, right? So you'll have like tanky socialists who are then siding with like the hyper conservatives, and it's kind of throwing a lot of the typical rhetoric and conversations into wild disarray, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I don't know if that directly answers your question, but like that's part of like what's happening.
So you got my chocolate, you got your chocolate and my peanut butter.
I mean, that's my perspective. Thundero, what's your perspective?
I don't know if it's new angst. I think a lot of it probably is the Roe v. Wade stuff, which didn't get anywhere near as hot as I expected it to, which that's interesting. For the most part, yeah, there's still some murmuring, but I don't think it's violent like a lot of people thought it was going to be, which is good. That's a good thing. I think there's a lot of mistrust and distrust around. Just give me another one. Around everything right now. Whether it be I think a lot of it has to do with COVID. I think a lot of it has to do with this Ukraine thing that very few people seemingly supports our involvement in, yet we keep getting dragged into it in different ways. Things like this. I think there's a lot of. I honestly think, and I've been saying this for a while, I'm going to say it in a different way though, that the chickens are getting ready to come home to roost, and that we have lived with a superstructure around us for a very long time that's both corporate and otherwise and governmental, that is built on deceiving us, that is built on lying to us. And I don't even think that's debatable, but I think more people are aware of it now than they ever were before, and I think that's why. I honestly think most people didn't realize how bad the corruption had gotten.
Oh yeah,
how bad it is, and now I think a lot more people do. And in fairness to Trump, he was one of the main catalysts for that. I think a lot of people, I hate using this terminology, but it's apt, woke up and they notice that, wait a minute, some of this stuff
Whoa.
is real bad. Is real bad.
It is.
And I think that's why you're seeing this convergence between those two extremes, because the people on the fringes, like myself, we're early responders, right? We're the canaries in the coal mines. We see the problem before other people do for whatever reason, not because we're better than them or anything. We're more in tune with it, which is why we exist on those fringes. And like I posted a thing in the chat earlier about national divorce becoming much more common topic to be
It is.
talked about in conservative circles, especially. Um, I told Chester 3 years ago because he asked me, because I've been for it for a long time, and he asked me, yeah, but how common is that talked about over there? Because obviously he's not here, and I said, well, it's not that common yet, but it will be, and it's becoming more and more so. I think what happens is you get these ages all throughout history. The founding of America was one of them, but it wasn't the only revolution at the time.
Well, it
I
sparked a lot. Yeah.
Yes, I think we are in a revolutionary age. And I don't think
Maybe.
that in necessarily a violent way, maybe, hopefully not, but just in an age where the people are going to re-exert their will over the apparatuses that are supposed to serve them and govern their lives.
Well,
And that's a good thing. Whether it ends up being more leftist or rightist, the principle itself is a good thing, and the action itself is typically a good thing. Not always, but typically it ends up being better in the long run for everybody, even
Right.
the people at the top who end up back in control eventually anyway, because that's why they're there to begin with. I think that's where we're at. I think we're at a turning, as I can't remember the author said, but there's the great turnings that happen throughout history.
sure.
I think that's where we are, and I think that's why there's so much angst. I also think it's about to get a lot worse, and I think everybody kind of knows that we're like right on this precipice where, like Chester was talking about, we may very well see actual famines in the
Oh
West
no.
for the first time in 100 years.
The next year,
Uh,
in the next year,
yeah,
the third world's going to melt. I'm telling you.
yes,
I'm not. That's
and
not
that's
even a
not
guess.
good.
It's going to happen. It's already happening.
Nobody wants to see that.
Yeah.
That's not good for anybody. And I think that's a lot of people who are now just now starting to pay more attention because Americans were lazy, especially
Well,
Americans, apathetic. I think that's where a lot of that angst is coming from. And it's just playing out in weird ways online, like weird articles about stuff that largely doesn't matter.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to put my tinfoil hat on here for a second. But
Uh-oh.
before that, I have to read Adrian's comment. Chester, what's really creepy is talking about something and getting ads, like talking about something in real time, in person, about a subject, and then getting ads about it. I know, dude. It's the quantum computers. I know they are listening. Yes, that's why I don't allow them in my house. But no, tinfoil hat. Now there is a theory that has been growing here for past, I don't know, 6 decades. I'll say 6 decades. It's picked up more hype recently, and people think it's a new idea. It's not. But in the past 400 years, we have come into an age where we've been collecting data, right? You have the thing with, of course, John Dee and Lord Bacon, who are kind of the one with the guys who codified the modern scientific method, right? And it's not like saying people in the past didn't have science. Of course they did. I'm just talking about the modern way we do things. And part of that is experiment again, and then have someone else do it several times, and keep documentation on everything, right? And that's where has so the past 400 years we've been seeing an ever growing amount of data, right? And that's great. And now when we look at data in the past, it becomes a little bit more difficult. But when you combine actual written stuff, which has to be taken with a grain of salt, of course, but archaeological discoveries, genetics, etc., we can get a picture that does correlate. Right, but the past 400 years has been really good because we're just been gaining more and more and more information. And one thing that we know is that, and we know this going back, at least 7 generations of this, is that our sun goes through cycles, right? It has many of them. One of them is a 400-year cycle, and that's not argued anymore. That's done science. However, what are the overall effects? We're coming into one right now, and I guarantee you some people are really worried about it, but the scientists themselves are excited, I am sure, because they're like collecting all kinds of crazy data and they're just loving it. But there's this theory. Now, it might, who knows? The older people have probably thought about it too, and I could make some weird correlations, but I won't. But like I said, about 60 years. The theory is that the sun not only affects our weather, which we know it does, not only does it affect our seismology, like earthquakes and volcanoes and stuff, which we know it does, right? Some of the scientists that are working on space weather stuff, they're well over 90% accurate now, right?
Mm.
But there's been this argument that, and it's gone both ways. I think the older one is, I'll say first, and I'll say the newer one now. That the older one thinking is that human consciousness and thought can cause effect in reality, meaning that if
Mm.
enough people believe a thing and talking about a thing and thinking on the thing, if it's a large enough groups, they can cause change, not just simple cultural change because they've moved in a different direction, but actual cognitive change amongst the population. The newer thinking is that the sun has a great effect on human psychology. And when the sun is going through its peak cycles, and we're coming into a peak of a very long cycle right now, but it has other cycles. And I've seen people write about this, that when it's in coming into its peak, humanity loses its shit. And I don't know where I stand on it, but like I said, the old theory is more about the human consciousness affecting each other and the mob mentality. Even pheromones will come into the conversation, I suppose. But now with I'm also adding the sun into that category. I'm kind of wondering what you guys think. Do you think there's any validity at all to the idea that the sun and human mentality can cause actual shifts in cultural shifts in zeitgeist?
Yeah.
No.
And the reason why I think there's some validity to it, I don't know how powerful the force is because we've kind of always believed that. All of humanity
Yeah.
throughout time has had some form of astrology or sun worship or whatever.
True.
That's effectively the same thing, right? It might be a different way of saying it, but reality is being affected by the cosmos, by the stars in the heavens, or the god that is the sun, or whatever, right? Whatever the terminology is. So that the fact that humanity has, and this is pretty universal from my understanding, has always, for differing reasons, had a similar system in mind, or would apply it, and was typically, treated as myth or superstition. But some people took it very seriously, like the Aztecs. Um, there's something there.
Mesopotamians too.
Yeah, there's something there. Now, what it is, no idea. Could just be a form of mass psychosis. It could be something in our lizard brain that makes us identify the sun as the giver of life. I have no idea. It could be any number of things, but I would say there's something there. Whether or not it's 1-to-1 like that. What I will say is this: my wife worked in a hospital for a very long time. She used to work not with the ER, but with the ICU that got the people from the ER. And she would tell me every month when there was a full moon was
Yep.
the worst day to be working.
Yep.
Every
Talk to
time.
a cop, talk to a nurse, they'll tell you the same
Yep.
thing. It's true. I
Because
get the
people
joke,
just
Brett, but I'm
do
talking much bigger
we
than that, dude.
people just do weird shit in a full moon, and it's inexplicable. Nobody knows why, but it absolutely happens 100%. She used to talk about it all the time, and the other doctors and nurses will talk about it, especially ER ones. Full moon is a weird time. It does something to the psychology of people, and they start doing weird stuff.
Yeah.
And I think there is some validity to it. I don't think it's as hard and fast as like astrology or anything like that. But there's definitely something. And when you think about it, all our brains are is a bunch of energy signals bouncing around gray matter.
Yeah. Everything's
So if there is,
electrical, that's true.
yeah, if there was some force out there, which the sun is one, that can greatly affect the electromagnetic field of our world, If it does weird stuff, yeah, it makes sense that it could do weird stuff in our minds and cause us to do things we wouldn't normally do.
Yeah, yeah, no, and I like the theory. It is an interesting theory, and there are many facets to it, like you had mentioned.
Yep.
And the idea that, like for instance, I always like this concept. Um, why is a sunset beautiful?
Mm,
Is it beautiful because it is a thing of beauty, or is it beautiful because humanity has grown up and evolved and adapted on this planet, and therefore it is a simple state of existence that makes it beautiful,
hmm,
right? I love that concept because, of course, you can't answer the question.
right.
But my general idea is, what do you think about, the the sun having direct effect upon humanity. Ben,
So I'm going to take the negative on this.
sure. Why not?
So, first of all, we do know that vitamin D has a
Hmm.
direct effect on humanity. We see this from populations that have very low sunlight. Like I have friends in Seattle who they have to have happy lamps just to give them, enough UV to for their bodies to create vitamin D. That can have an effect on mood and stuff like that.
Hmm.
But we have plenty of people around the world who exist with no sun. We have people who exist in Antarctica and where they don't see sunlight for months on end, right?
Hmm.
And so there, I think what most of the people like it could be related to is an overabundance of sun um, for like what you're talking about could be a sign of like hotter temperatures, more extreme weather, and that can negatively impact people. Like if you go through extreme droughts, that's going to be a resource constraint for people, and then that's
Sure.
going to have a negative impact on emotions and stuff like that. So, but I think that's the more likely thing than anything metaphysical.
I see.
Mm.
Well, we know it happens though. So I'm assuming you're leaning more on the simple, whatever the pheromone or cognitive thing is happening amongst large groups, the mob. We know it
Hmm.
happens. So you're leaning more toward the chemical rather than the existential, I guess.
Right.
That's fine.
Electrical.
Yeah, no, no. And I don't know the answer. And that's why I asked. I just think
Mhm.
it's very interesting. I do know you don't want to segment out things like Antarctica because you're talking about a smaller population. I'm talking about the humanity itself. But fair enough. It's not necessarily important, I guess. But it just if you look historically, when you get a large, and I mean a huge chunk of major populations thinking one way, it has
Mhm.
very direct effect. And what is it all about? Maybe it's a little bit of everything. I don't know. Happy lamps, yeah. Well, the
Well, there's
interesting.
one example. There's a good way to put it this like this. We know that the moon can affect the tides and does affect the tides directly. If it has the power to do that, why would it not have an ability to affect your mind's your mental state?
Yeah, no, I think I believe that there is something to it. It's probably
Yeah.
it's much bigger picture than just that. But I think there is
Yes.
a little bit to it. Ben mentioned Happy Lance and Devilish is having a laugh at it. But he's right though, because it is an interesting thing with sunlight and vitamin D because the Celtic people, not Caucasians, the Celts, very specifically, I think I don't know how much these two would, but Ben and I for sure. But well, me, I think me, mainly me. See, I don't need sun. I produce vitamin D all on my own. What an interesting little adaptation the Northern Celts got. How
Yeah.
interesting. Because I had a student, for instance, and I know I knew about this anyway, but I learned more about the happy lamps because I didn't even know that they existed then. I mean, I guess my brain would have said they would have, but I didn't know about them. And I had a student in my class. He worked for, he's a scientist, worked for a company. He was going over to Denmark to basically redesign and update the Danish fish farming industry, which is pretty big job, really. And he came into me just to brush up on his English for like what was it, a year or a year and a half before he had to go over, and I worked really hard to try to help him out. Anyway, he's over there, and I did some research for him as well to try to integrate into the lessons, cultural things of Denmark to try to help him out, right? So I went and did a little work to apply to that class, and of course I learned about these happy lamps. I don't think that's what they call them, but I know what you mean, Ben. But and the people in Denmark, of course, have no problem at all. They're from there, and they're Scandinavian like myself. But foreigners, when you go, and because I did research, foreigners go in, they have certain problems with the Danish, and they'll bitch online. Ben, you know how the over here the Jets were always bitching about something, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
And it may, it is what it is. But some of the things they were complaining about were innocuous, to be fair. But every single solitary one of them would complain about the need for these happy lamps. Because they're not Celts. Some of them were. I remember there was one lady was like an Italian. There was some, a Middle Eastern lady, an African lady, but they're not Celts. And it is interesting how we can go into all the little subgroups of humanity, racial subgroups, and see the interesting little adaptations that they've gained from their environment. But the ability to produce vitamin D on one's own is quite an interesting one. How did that come about? I don't know, but wow. I know it has nothing to do with what we were talking about, but it's interesting.
It is
Well,
interesting.
it's an interesting, trait from like genetics perspective, right?
Yes.
Considering how critical it is to survival of the human species, right?
Right.
And there are a subset who can't, and then there's a subset who can, right?
Very
So
small group that can. Yeah,
right,
very small
right.
group. Yeah. But I'm sorry. I didn't mean to derail it, but
Oh, you're fine.
it's fascinating. It's fascinating because a lot of the adaptations we see are things like with some of the African tribes, for instance. We know they have several beneficial physical adaptations, but one of the more interesting ones is the Africans, the Black Africans that live on the plains, the savannas, right? They have the best eyesight on Earth by far. They can see accurately at a distance that would baffle us.
Hmm.
So it's a weird little, very beneficial to them because they can see the predator coming, right? Or the prey leaving. So it makes sense. But a lot of these adaptations throughout humanity are very physical based. They're very physically, it makes sense, having higher stamina and better lung capacity for mountain dwellers, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And it makes sense once you look at it and talk about it. But to adapt into producing a vitamin on your own is, I don't even know how that happens.
Magic.
So since we're on to the topic of like evolution, Chad, and slightly controversial, not real controversial, but like, do you think dogs are evolving to smile to better socialize with humans?
I mean, they've been adapting for a long time. I wouldn't be shocked. Again, I think the difference between you and I, you use the word evolution and I use the word adaptation.
Okay.
And because evolution, I think it's interesting idea. I think it's probably going in the right direction, but we've been banging at this for what, 170 years, and we haven't proved nothing, right? So clearly, there's more to it. There's something missing with evolution. I prefer the word adaptation because we know this is real. You just mentioned dogs. Look how adapted to look at us. We're a hybrid species. We use the word race all the time. It doesn't make sense. It doesn't make
Sure.
any sense whatsoever.
Well,
We are
so
a
so
hybrid species.
to kind of so like when we say you haven't proved it, like it's one of those things that like we might not ever prove, right? Because of the way it's conceptualized, right? It's like
Yep.
gravity. We haven't proved
No,
gravity,
that's true.
right? That's a concept, right? So saying that we haven't proved evolution, like there's no proving it. Like it's a concept right? But we have a pretty good grasp on it, just like we have a pretty good grasp on gravity.
Yeah,
So,
I agree. Well, gravity is far more controversial than evolution in my brain. Like I said, I think evolution is moving in the right direction. I just prefer the word adaptation because that is real and it's quantifiable, right?
Measurable.
that's fair.
So yeah, but
Measurable.
gravity is a whole nother thing because there's two sides of that. And during my lifetime, I've seen it go from what you just said, basically, the gravitonic, space-time continuum crap, into plasma science is taking over, dude. It's taking
Right.
over.
Oh yeah, it is.
So gravity is way more of a controversial theory than evolution in my mind. Maybe not for Thundero.
No, I don't believe in gravity at all. I don't even know how I'm on this planet.
Yeah,
Um,
but what about you know what I mean? My point is evolution. How do you line up on the
I
Darwin's
actually line
thoughts?
up more with you, and the reason being is because it's hard to call something scientifically veracious if you can't prove it with the scientific method.
Yeah,
You can prove adaptation, you can prove
yeah,
mutation, but you cannot you cannot prove especially neogenic evolution with science because, well, we don't have time machines. Um, Conceptually, it's correct, like you're saying. I think it's accurate. I think that's obviously the way life structures itself. But I don't think the theory holds up to scrutiny, actual scientific scrutiny, simply because it's impossible to test. It's too broad. It's too big. There's no way to do it.
right. And
Um,
until they can find the actual genetic evidence to show it, and that's the
yeah,
problem because genetics have been banging and they're doing really good jobs with them now, and there's been so many things cataloged and they haven't found any correlation whatsoever. If you
yeah.
look at the like for instance, one of the this might be sound strange to you, but one of the closest relationships we have in mammalia is that between the canine and the feline, right?
Yeah.
Now I know from us, a cat and a dog, well, that's a very different thing. Well, genetically, no. And if you look at them, this is one of those, this and flies for some reason, is one of the real focus areas for, Darwinists, because if they can find when one became the other or when they split, if they can genetically prove this is going to go a long way to proving the theory of evolution. And they have
Right.
been banging on this for a very long time, and they have not found a single iota, dude.
Species to species
Yeah,
mutation.
nothing.
Yeah.
So like I said, I don't want to get in a big argument over evolution. I do think they're moving the right direction. I think it's something like that. I just feel they're missing something. I think there's some there's some grand mutator, a mutation effect that is coming probably cosmically. That
Hmm.
is the attributor. I really think so, especially when you look in these mass die-offs we have, like the Cambrian explosions and things like that. I think there's something externally happening on the planet. It could be internal, but I don't think so. There's some kind of cosmic pulse that we only see every so often, or the sun goes into some weird cycle that's causing, I don't know what it is, but there's some extreme mutator that is affecting the planet from time to time that is probably the answer. Now that's complete speculation, unfortunately, but my brain can't think of any other explanation for it.
Mm.
And I'm just human and I'm not a geneticist. So,
Sure.
I'm nor
Alien.
am I a biologist. But I mean, yeah,
Well, that's one of the problems. Why I think there's some validity to that cosmic theory that cosmic energy has more of an impact on us than we want to admit, or that we know, is because humanity has this habit of deluding ourselves into thinking we are not part of the natural world, that we're somehow
well, that's true.
outside of it or above it or beyond it, which is just nonsense. Obviously, it's obviously we are natural beings and we are part of this world, whether we want to be or not. Even if you want to take a creationist stance, your physical form is still natural, and there's still external forces that can affect it. Um, and I think part of the reason why evolution is going to be, I don't want to say debunked because I don't think that's accurate. I think it's going to be expanded into a more
Yeah,
clear picture,
I agree.
is because there's no way to prove neogenesis. There's no way to get us to us. We can look at the apes, we can look at other species, we can look at bacteria and all sorts of different forms of life, and those are all fine, and we all have very similar DNA structures. But they still don't get from there to here. How did that happen? How did we go from there to here? How did it even start? There's no answer. They just don't have an actual answer. They have a bunch of theories that just promote more questions.
Yeah.
But there's no actual answer. And I think one day we will have that answer.
I hope
I
so.
don't necessarily think it's going to be a religious one. It might be. Maybe the religions are right. I don't know. But I think we will get that answer. Maybe not us. Maybe in the future. If humanity doesn't allow itself to devolve into some sort of regressive nonsense, I think we will find the answer to that question.
Yeah,
But
hopefully we
I don't
won't.
think that answer will be Darwinic evolution. I just don't. I think
No,
he's
that's okay.
missing something.
Things are, Einstein, we know that his theories and stuff are not correct now,
Yes.
but that doesn't mean Einstein's not valuable.
But he got us asking the questions.
He
and
did.
that's very valuable.
Darwin is very valuable, and he was far more honest than his priests anyway.
Yes.
To be honest with you, but it is an interesting conversation. Do you have anything to add to that, Ben?
I think we covered it pretty good. I mean, it's a lot of big topics that are, frankly, we kind of understand the periphery, the three of us, but there's a lot of in and outs to it, right?
Sure.
And so, evolution is one of those really tough things because there is a lot of evidence that points to something happening,
Yeah.
right? And our mating with the Neanderthals and that having an effect on us and stuff like that, right? So, but this is one of those problems that we're looking for some like source of truth with all this, and I mean, just look at how much we've changed in like 100 years. Like humans are not like what they used to be 100 years ago.
No.
Just we know that at the genetic level, right?
True.
We are different, and so. And that just 100 years is like a blink of the eye compared to some of the time frames that they're trying to track and monitor, right?
Right.
So I think that's what makes it all really tough.
It does, but it's fun just to chat about, though. I mean,
Of course.
yeah, it's good fun. And I don't understand why people get all upset because some people get really mad, and it's like,
Oh
dude,
yeah. Get
nobody
cross.
knows shit. What are you upset about?
Yes.
I mean, you're just having a conversation and you speculate.
Well, I think that's part of the reason is a lot of people claim knowledge they just simply don't have
you
based
see
on
that a lot, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Because one of the problem is you're talking about a truth, and I do hope that humanity gains some truths at one time in our history.
Be nice.
It would be because right now we have none. There is no.
Well, we have one.
truth. What?
We have one.
Name it.
We're gonna die.
Well,
That's about it.
Is that true though? Is that
Yes, you are
eternally
going to
true?
die, Chester.
Well,
yes, you will. Now, it might not be eternal, but you are definitely going to die.
Well, I'm just saying that
I
right
promise
now
you,
that
you are
is
going
true.
to die.
But as science advances, they might well remove that completely.
They are working on it. There's
They
people
are.
who are trying to effectively end death with genetic
All
engineering.
different kinds of ways. There's many approaches, actually. Yeah.
Yes. And
but
hey, maybe they'll succeed, and then death will be a relic of the past. That'd be something.
yeah,
Be something.
and another thing, a good point that Ben made is about we can have fun talking, but getting in a deeper conversation is more difficult. As far as the biology and genetics and stuff, genetic particularly, I probably am the more informed of us. But my specialty is literally very focused
Words.
on haplogroups.
Yeah.
Right? I mean that I know. But if you want me to tell you about the evolution of the sparrow, fuck off. Right? I mean, I don't
Funny you
know.
chose the sparrow. It's funny
Yeah.
you chose the sparrow because in Christian theology, a sparrow is a very interesting choice. One of the most famous verses is basically Jesus telling people not to worry because if God can take care of the sparrow, he can take care of you. Just funny that you chose sparrow. It made me
Yeah.
immediately think of that.
Yeah, well, or you're assuming again. But anyway, thank you all very much. That's fun. Yeah, no, Roger, we probably should do another TFD. We do enjoy those.
They
It's
are fun.
lighthearted and just having some fun. And honestly, today we talked about not a lot of fun stuff. So tomorrow I'm going to try to make it as fun as possible and
I like
lighthearted
that.
because, talking about it once a week is fine, I guess. But man, there's a lot of dumbass bullshit going on right now. Let's be
That's
honest.
true.
And just back up a little bit. You can have your opinion, and that's fine. We three sitting here, and Grimlock as well, who's not in here today, and others that come on the shows. We don't agree on 100% of anything, but we can sit and have a chat and enjoy the conversation. Maybe we learn something, or maybe we open our minds and broaden our thinking a little bit, right? How hard is that? How hard is that? Because the lines have been drawn. It's very clear, and there is no more conversation. There is no more compromise happening at all. None.
Yeah.
You show me any compromises going on politically anywhere right now. And that is not a good thing. We need
No.
to talk, because just because your world is your lived experience, it doesn't mean that's just everyone else's lived experience. And we should be able to find a way that we can all enjoy our world ourselves without infringing on the others. That's the goal, right? That's the whole
I
point
like
of this concept of civilization humans have been banging at for who knows how long. And we've got to a point here, particularly in the West, where it's just absolute stalemate. And this needs to be broken in some way or another. And I'm kind of curious, because we have a lot of these people that love to, the want to save the world types. Okay, fair enough. But in the coming year and a half, next year and a half, you're going to see a lot of dead people coming out of the third world. You're going to see a lot
Yeah.
of war. It's going to blow up, and it's going to be ugly. And you know whose fault it is? It's our fault. We did that. And I'm
Yeah.
kind of wondering if we're going to get a little bit of introspection out of these right and lefts, whatever they are, these ensconced groups,
Oh,
and and,
Chester, you
and
just
maybe
set me up
back
perfectly
up a
for the
little bit.
Namaste. You just set me up perfect. Let me do it right now because you set me up perfectly. You see, Chester, in order for that to happen, then they would be forced to look in the scariest place in all of the world, the mirror.
Yeah, yeah. Namaste. Anything to add, Ben?
Just be kind to each other.
Yeah, dude. Yeah.
Good point.
Later.